then I did my time. I worked while I was doing my time. I was also creating good days because I would go out and I was only sentenced to like, I don't know, 30, maybe 45 days in the House of Corrections, which was cut down because I got out every night and I worked at the Summerfest, at the State Fair, out picking up garbage on the highway, doing just whatever I can to give back. Now, since then, I have cleaned myself up. I've been volunteering for the Our Savior's Ladies Church as a helper down there in the food pantry for several years. Also, I've volunteered for the largest youth football league as a commissioner for 4 or 5 years, giving my time back to the community. And I've also become a homeowner and a taxpayer. And I'm a 62-year-old man, and I think I paid my sentence and I gave back to society, and I'm just trying to be productive and clear my name, as like a bucket list, because I'd like to do some traveling and do whatever. But the main thing is I just want my name cleared and to move forward in that process.
All right. Thank you, Michael.
Okay, I don't want to go on and babble on and on, but
no, that was helpful. I'll open it up to the board for questions. So, questions from the board.
Okay.
Noble.
Good morning, Mr. Gregory.
Yes, sir.
From your presentation and just looking at your application, it appears that you've done a considerable amount of volunteer work. I was a bit surprised to see no letters of support. Can you give me some sense of, what people think of you and the community and letters of support, ideas? Could you help me with that one a little bit?
Well, I'm a deacon in my church, which is the House of Prayer, which is I don't know if you're familiar with Milwaukee, but it's right on Fond du Lac here in North. I've been actually a member there for over 30 years. And so I could have actually had my pastor wrote me a letter of recommendation. And I also could have had the director that was running the food pantry down there write me a letter, but I didn't know I needed all of that. And also I could have had the leader of this youth football league, which was Neighborhood Sports League, who played off of Lincoln Park with all the youth football league there. The guy would have, which is a lady in control now, would have gave me a support letter. And the only reason I hadn't been back with that is because of the COVID thing had stopped everything. And so that's the last time I've been out there since this COVID thing kicked off. Otherwise, I could have got supportive letters from, like I say, all of those people.
Thank you.
Other questions from the board? Mr. Gregory, I just have a couple questions. So it looks like you've been sober for, how long have you been sober for now, Mr. Gregory?
I've been sober ever since that happened, since I got out of, yes, I went through a treatment program as well as, actually when I went through the treatment program, they have you come down and they test you or whatever every other week, and you blow into this thing, and they were actually down there. They says, "Well, we're going to ring the bell because you're the first one who ever came down here and was straight through the whole program." And I'm sort of proud of that, and I've got the paperwork here to prove it, And also, I went through an anger management class which I successfully completed that as well. So
Yeah.
I believe I'm a productive citizen. Like I said, I do own property here in the city.
Mhm.
I am a taxpayer, and I haven't been in trouble since that happened.
Yeah, no, and congratulations on that's a very significant accomplishment. And related to that, can you just talk a little bit about? It looks like there are a couple of restraining orders that before you became sober that were filed and granted against you. It looks like one in 96, 2004, and 2005. And then, there's a very clear, at least from your file, very clear connection. Once the felony happened and you became sober, that stopped. Can you talk a little bit about, though, before that, what was going on in terms of those restraining orders?
Well, I was living with a female who, at first she was living with me, and then I moved with her, and we sort of disconnected, sort of, because she was a Jehovah Witness, and I was, shall I say, I'm a Holy Baptist church. Well, it's not a Baptist church, but it's called the House of Prayer, and we don't quite see eye to eye on certain issues, and so we sort of fell apart, and that was way before I got the felony, but I didn't violate that restraining order, and I didn't do anything else. And we just moved apart from there. We had an argument one night, and the police were called, and it escalated, and she got a restraining order, and I just moved on from there after that,
Mm-hmm. Okay. Mr. Gregory, thanks for appearing before us today. As you heard me say at the top of the session, you'll hear from us in about a month in terms of the outcome, but I appreciate your time with us and hope you have a good weekend.
Okay, sounds great.
All right.
Am I done here?
You are done, and feel free to hang up and go about your day.
Thank you very much, sir. And I'd like to thank each and every one of y'all for giving me an opportunity to speak out and on behalf of this. And I'd also like to thank the governor for issuing these pardons, because I've been watching them over the news, and I didn't see that last governor doing anything like that. So I would like to thank each and every one of y'all.
Thank you, Mr. Gregory. Take care.
Thank you and goodbye. Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Next, we'll hear from, is it Teresa? My apologies if I mispronounced that.
It's Terica.
Teresa. Thank you for appearing before us, Ms. Linton. You've seen how this works. So if you wouldn't mind just sharing your story with us, and then I'll open it up for questions. So please proceed.
Okay, so my case first happened in May of 2012. This was a child abuse case. The reason being for me getting a felony is because I was party to the crime. I didn't actually put my hands on my child. What I did do was held her down so she could get spanked on her butt. But I was charged with party to the crime. I was given a deferred prosecution. And on my last day of my AODA class, I did drop dirty. But in between that time, I did do Justice 2000. I dropped clean through there, and I had 18 months of probation, which I did complete, and I did pay my restitution as well. The reason why I got it is because my kids, they were outside while we were asleep. We were all asleep at the time. We woke up and saw the kids outside. They were half dressed. At the time, I was with my kids, well, my son's father. I didn't have my last child until 2016 with him. My daughter, that's not her dad. She has a whole nother dad. But her stepdad did spank her. I didn't spank his son. He spanked his son. He just felt that it would be more proper for him to do it because I was very lenient on the kids and I didn't want to spank them. I felt like talking to him would be better. But I was charged with that, messed up my deferred prosecution. I did do volunteer work. I completed all my other things before I did drop dirty. I completed my probation, and in between that time, I started going to school in 2015, and I got my associate's degree in 2015 for criminal justice. Got my bachelor's degree in criminal justice concentration and security back in 2018, and right now I'm going for my master's degree for criminal justice, just to make sure that I'm coming out to be an outstanding citizen, for the United States.
All right. Thanks, Ms. Linton. Questions from the board? Nadia, and then Noble.
Ms. Linton, can you talk to us a little bit about some of the parenting techniques that you learned since this incident, and how you apply that with your children since then and now?
Yeah, I did go through a lot of parenting classes, even with what I'm going through now. It's more of, talking to them instead of it's good to be the authority figure, but also let them be able to choose what they want to do as well, instead of saying it's because I said so, or things like that. They also told me about giving them the 5-second rule, or even just giving myself a 10-minute countdown before I do react. So it was a lot of things that I did take from the class, even, them showing me how the brain works with the kids, and as well as the thoughts, and what else was it in the parenting class? I did 3 of them. So it was, all the parenting classes was very helpful. They gave me just different insight on just how to discipline the kids, and what would be the best discipline for them. And it's basically just taking things away, putting them in a corner. If the corner that doesn't work, just I think they said the best thing to do is basically just take their things away. That that'd be the best thing.
Noble, and then Anthony.
You can go with Anthony. Nadia asked my question.
Okay, Anthony.
Yeah, I just had a question as far as just how's your relationship with your child now, or children?
Oh, it's perfect. I'm actually going through some things right now as far as getting my kids back, because it was things that happened in between that time too. It wasn't for it wasn't for child abuse or anything like that. It was more my mental and getting myself back together to be able to get a job, and just being in the right state of mind. But my relationship with my kids now, I feel like it is very good. I talk to my oldest daughter, every now and then. She's working right now, but she stays with her dad. My 2 youngest kids, they stay with their grandma right now, and I'm just kind of like in between of helping her, getting them back and forth to school and things like that. But my relationship with my kids, I feel like it's very strong.
Great. And also, I want to say congratulations on your accomplishments thus far as well. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ms. Linton. Appreciate your time with us, and you'll hear from us in about a month, but hope you have a good day.
You as well. Thank you, guys. I really appreciate it. And I also appreciate Tony Evers for even, like the other gentleman said, to be able to give us this opportunity to have another opportunity to, get the jobs and things that we need.
Thanks. Appreciate it. All right. Next, we will be hearing from Melvin Collins. Melvin, let's see if you're on. Melvin? Oh, there you are. Yep, now we can hear you. Perfect. Yeah. It's Zoom always creates a few challenges, but it does spare people a trip to Madison. So it saves us all a lot of time.
Especially for me, I'm not working smartphones.
Yeah, that's right. Well, Melvin, you've seen how this works, so please proceed, and we'll open it up for questions once you're done.
Hi, my name is Melvin Collins. I had gotten in trouble back in 1994. Just a wild and silly teenage kid that couldn't be told anything. At that time, Me and a couple other guys, we had robbed a gas station. There was no weapon, no firearm involved, and no one had gotten hurt. We just stole a couple $100. And then there was also a fact, we had stolen a couple vehicles too. Like I said, we're just kind of dumb, wild kids at the time. I really don't have any excuse for it, but I had gotten a 4.5-year prison sentence plus a 5 years probation to follow after that. I served 21 months. When I got out, I served a full balance of my time out with no other incidences or problems or behavioral issues. Since then, I've just been fighting to keep getting a good job, become a productive person. I mean, it's been a challenge because there's been a few places that actually turned me down for work because of my record. And, but I still kept it at it. And now I work for a decent company. I make a decent wage. I do what I can to support my family. This record I have, like I said, it hurts me because of some jobs will still turn me down even after 25 years. And then with me living in mostly smaller communities with my children, I never really had a chance to like go on field trips with them through the schools, because a lot of times these schools will do background checks. And being in small towns, I was always worried about other people finding out about my background because I didn't want them to think differently of me, because I do consider myself a decent guy. And, and I want my kids to know about it. So I've always had to kind of step back from all that. And, that kind of bothered me over these years. Now my children are getting older. I got a 20-year-old that's out in the Marine Corps in California. I still got a 16-year-old daughter, and I still got a 10-year-old son. There's still things I can still do with my 10-year-old, of course. But with having a 20-year-old, I mean, I might have grandchildren sometime soon, and I'd rather, want to be able to be a little bit more part of their lives when that time comes. I guess I don't know what else to really say, except that, I screwed up. I was a dumb kid. I have never reoffended in 2.5 decades. Only thing I've had any problems with in the last 2.5 decades were maybe a couple minor traffic citations. But other than that, I've just been, a hardworking guy trying to take care of his family.
Thanks, Mr. Collins. Could you talk a little bit about, going back 14 years now to 2008, 2009, the charges you received for felony transferring encumbered property? I know you weren't convicted, but can you just talk about that? I know you mentioned some in the application, but can you just fill in the full context?
Absolutely.
Of that?
Absolutely, sir. I had a business with a semi-truck, and I had a trailer, and I had one of those three-wheeled forklifts that would ride off the back of it to deliver building material. I was with National Exchange Bank in Fond du Lac, and there's no title for that type of equipment, but it was on the loan. Well, the work I was doing was transferring away from the use of the forklift, and I needed some repairs done on my truck, and I had asked him if I could sell that to raise a few funds to get my bigger repairs done on my semi at the time. And he had told me yes verbally on the phone. Well, then a couple of years later, when everything went downhill because my business went under when everything crashed around 2007, that's when he's like, well, we want the equipment. And I said, you told me I could sell it 1.5 years ago. It's been gone. He's like, and then that's when he changed his mind. He said, I never told you that. So he tried charge me with a Class I felony of defrauding a bank, I believe it was. And the lawyer I had at the time told me that I could probably fight it. I might have a 50% chance of winning, or I can pay a small amount of restitution to them over a 2-year period and they'll drop everything. Mm-hmm. So I weighed out my options, and I figured that was the best option in the long run, was just pay the couple grand to them that they would settle for and just, drop everything. Unfortunately, like I said, nothing was charged to me and everything was dropped, thankfully, but it was a really bad misunderstanding between me and the bank.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And then what was and again, this charge was dismissed, but what was the 2009 misdemeanor charge for restricting or obstructing an officer? What was that about? Same thing?
That was off the same thing. The detective in Mayville, Wisconsin was trying to contact me, and then during that same time frame, because like I said, everything was falling apart with economy crash. I lost my house, lost my business. And then I think we had changed phone numbers, and he couldn't get a hold of me because my old phone number was no good anymore. And that, if I'm remembering correctly, I think that was mostly the biggest issue on it. was that he was calling the wrong number, my old one, not having my new one. And then they tried to give me a ticket for obstructing his investigation.
Okay. Other questions from the board? All right. Well, thanks, Mr. Collins, for appearing before us. As you've heard me say before, you'll find out about the outcome of this process in about a month, but appreciate your time and hope you have a good weekend.
Thank you. You folks too. Have a great day.
Thanks. All right. Next, we'll be hearing from James Sterner. So James, looks like there you are. Well, you've seen how this works, James. So why don't you please proceed by sharing your story, and then I'll open up for questions.
My story starts December 5th of 1996. I got a call from my buddy. We're not friends anymore. He had called and asked me for a ride from Saukville to Port Washington. I didn't have a driver's license, and I agreed to pick him up. And I went to attempt to pick him up. And it being a smaller community, if you know one cop, they know you, and they knew me, and they saw me driving, and I think I was driving a little too fast initially anyway. And when he got behind me, I jumped on the highway and just floored it. I didn't know at the time that it was a felony for fleeing and eluding. I didn't even know about fleeing and eluding. I ran. They picked me up about 6 hours later. It was like 3 a.m. when they picked me up. When they arrested me, I filled out the paperwork. I signed what do they call that? Their report. I wrote up my own report, gave it to them. I helped them, and I fast-tracked my court hearing. My initial hearing, or my hearing, was in February. I was given 2 years in Wisconsin State Prison, 5 years license revocation, and I can't think of the last one. I'm too nervous. I'm sorry. I was given anger management, and I served the time, got off parole, was on the bracelet as well. I did the bracelet program. I only did one class of anger management, and the guy that was running the anger management program told me that I didn't need to be there, but because I didn't hear it from my parole officer, I actually went to the next hearing, and he said, "Why are you here?" And I was like, "Well, I didn't hear it from the parole officer." And he's, "Oh, well," and he called the parole officer and said he doesn't need to be here anymore because it had nothing to do with that. So they said that I did the program successfully. While I was in prison, I don't remember exactly how much time I did, but I did take vocational education training. I passed that. I don't have the certificate off the top. In 2000, I went back to school and got my GED. I don't have a lot of achievements like a lot of the other people do. I'm just your average hardworking guy that trying to support the family and whatnot. 4 years ago, I joined the Lions International. The Lions unit number is 27B-1. It's out of Brandon, Wisconsin. I live in Ripon. I work at the local washing dryer machine. We make Speed Queen washers and dryers at Alliance. I've been there for a little over 6 years now. Just trying to make everything go.
All right. Thanks, Mr. Sterner. One question I have for you, and then I'll open up to the board. Are you current on your child support?
Yes.
Okay. And did you complete it looks like in that 2019 case back in 2000, it just in the court records, there's a notice of failure to attend a parenting class. Did you end up completing that?
I have not yet. I didn't know about it, and I faintly remember them sending me paperwork, but I did not. I did not finish the course.
Okay. Other questions from the board? All right. Well, you're thorough in your application. So thank you, Mr. Sterner. Just for both you and everybody else, if there aren't questions, don't worry about it one way or the other. But appreciate your time and hope you have a good weekend.
Okay. Thank you very much.
All right. Next, we will go to Crystal Keller. So Crystal.
Hi. Are you able to see me or you can only hear me?
It looks like your video is turned on, but your camera might be covered.
Yeah, it's not because the camera on my laptop is working, but I guess I'll now. I got ready for no reason. I could be in my pajamas now. Okay.
No, please proceed.
Thank you. So good morning, members of the board. My name is Crystal Keller, and I want to thank you for this opportunity today. I'm here to discuss an escape criminal arrest incident, which occurred in late 2009. Conviction was in early 2010. I was about halfway through serving a 45-day sentence at Huber, which is work release jail, on a misdemeanor case related to a bitter divorce when I left Huber and I didn't go back. So I heard that my stepmother was in a coma in the ICU at a nearby hospital. I filled out a pass request to go see her. I would check in from work each night. And after 3 days of checking in from work and checking on my request for my pass, they still said it was pending. And I just decided, like, I can't wait anymore. I'm leaving. I left and I didn't go back. So that was escape criminal arrest. And I did serve 101 days in the county jail as time served, waiting for the escape proceedings. I also paid a $125 fine, and the jail did impose a punishment on me as well. So I spent 10 days in isolation. And then as far as what I've done since the completion of the sentence, so first I'll start with education. In 2014, I enrolled as a paralegal student, and I was recommended by one of my law professors for an internship at the public defender's office. I interviewed for it. I was offered the internship, but due to my felony conviction, they had to rescind the offer. I've also been a volunteer with the American Civil Liberties Union, or ACLU, of Wisconsin as a legal observer. And then about halfway through the paralegal program, I did move out of state to continue my education and work in the community. I have graduated now in spring of 2020 with honors and an associate's degree in social science. I planned on continuing on to California State University, but because of COVID, my education plans were put on hold. I didn't really know, what was going on. And then I'll just kind of move on to my volunteering experience. So after waiting about a year, or at least a year from being released, I did resume being a blood donor, which I've done for many years. I also did volunteer with the American Red Cross Blood Services for blood donation recruitments for a couple of years. I volunteered at the Ronald McDonald House. In addition, I volunteered regularly with food drives and food pantries with my children in Waukesha, and then also to my college's food pantry. I joined a legal organization in 2017 in Sacramento, California. It's a 100% volunteer grassroots organization, and I started as a legal advocate in October 2019. I was elected to the board of directors. And then as far as work experience, since being released, I did go right back into telecommunications, which was the industry I was working in prior to that. I moved on to working for a national payroll company where I did payroll for over 200 business clients and their payroll taxes. I also worked part-time for the state of Wisconsin Department of Public Instruction because I did have plans on going back to school to be a teacher, but just due to family circumstances at the time, I had to resign and go back to my payroll company. And then since then, I've worked in various office jobs or technical support positions while, still raising my children, taking care of my disabled father, volunteering and taking college classes. I was an IRS contractor. I worked for the state of California's tax agency and worked in human resources for the state of California. And then I do have a couple updates. Since submitting the pardon package, I have moved back to Wisconsin about a year ago. I am working for the state of Wisconsin again, this time in the Department of Health Services. In my current role, I help residents in the area access income-based programs like childcare assistance, food stamps, and medical insurance. And I really love this kind of work. I mean, I would do it voluntarily, but it's nice to get paid for it. And then I just started back in school again. So I'm a student at the University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee. I'm a junior student with a major in education policy. And that kind of brings me on to why I think I should receive a pardon. So it has been over 12 years since the conviction happened. And, you know, I kind of think like it's far behind me. I've done so much since then, but it does still come up. So for example, even just a few years ago, I was applying for a private life insurance policy, and they gave me like not as good of a policy where my rate isn't locked in. It just increases every couple of years strictly due to this. I mean, they did a whole extensive health check and everything, but no, it was just because of my felony conviction. But over the years, I've had multiple job offers rescinded to it, despite me disclosing it on employment applications, despite the laws in Wisconsin saying it can't be used against me unless it's significantly related to the conviction. I've also been denied housing multiple times. I've been unable to apply to some private universities because of it. And as I already mentioned, I was unable to be accepted into an unpaid internship with the Office of the State Public Defender when I was a paralegal student. Also, I would like to purchase a home someday, but can't get all the federal mortgage or lending programs available due to the felony conviction. And I'm almost done, but I certainly wouldn't do anything like this again. All the consequences that happened in my life from it that are still kind of, I feel like, haunting me to this day, but I can't go back in time. I can't change the past. All I can really say is, I've learned my lesson. I have done my time. I've used these experiences in my life to help other people. I've educated others on consequences of a criminal record. And people with a record, sometimes they don't really even know what their options are. And I feel like that can limit their growth and potential. So I've, explained to other people about the federal bonding program, what the employment rights are in Wisconsin. I've helped others with just navigating community resources or legal options on getting an expungement or pardon. And I've just talked to regular people and kind of helped open others' eyes as far as just explaining the kind of hurdles that people with a conviction record face in our society. Like once you do your time, if it's a felony, it's not over. It feels like a felony is forever. And I really would have had no idea about this if I hadn't gone through it myself. So I just want to say I learned my lesson, and I appreciate the time and opportunity in getting pardon today. So yeah, that's it. Thank you.
Thanks, Ms. Keller. Questions from the board? Noble? You're muted, Noble.
Good morning, Ms. Keller. I do have a question. There are a number of entries since your conviction related to, and you did disclose this in your application, mm-hmm. Abusive relationships, a TRO. Could you talk about kind of that whole domestic issue that you have been struggling with and where that is today?
Yeah, I mean, to say I was going through a really bad divorce is to put it mildly. I can say I'm glad that my child is almost 18. It took a lot of years for the relationship with my ex-husband to just be on okay terms, just respectful terms. I mean, I don't want to say he put me through a lot because that's really undermining it. But, basically, and it is disclosed on my application too. I mean, I was in jail initially, right? I had a misdemeanor case I was serving time for, and I didn't do it, right? My case was on appeal, but my ex-husband was really trying to make me look bad to get custody of our child and move out of state, which is that exactly what happened. And even though, you know, we got divorced so many years ago and he got remarried right away, he was still, like, if you look in court records, just in our family court case, over 200 court record events, like we were going to court all the time, not on my behalf. I mean, I was having to go to court because he wouldn't let me see my son, or he'd hang up on the phone, you know, and our son, that's our main way of seeing each other besides every other weekend. You know, I'm trying to have a relationship with my son that lived out of state. And it was just a really, really tumultuous time. It was really hard. And it just kind of felt like he was always trying to ruin my life. I don't know how else to put it. And he remarried right away. So it's kind of like, well, why don't you move on with your life? Why are you still trying to punish me for divorcing you? It was just such a hard time. And I don't know, I don't have much family support of my own. I mean, I was helping out my father, you know, and I had children from a previous relationship before this marriage, but there were also problems with, you know, my older two children's father. And I would just say I wasn't a very good judge of character when I was younger. I mean, that's when I was in my 20s. A lot of time has passed. I've matured and I've been a little more critical of the people that I allow into my life. But yeah, it's been quite a lot that I've been through. Yeah.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions from the board? All right, well, thanks, Ms. Keller. Appreciate your time. You'll hear from us in about a month, but hope you have a good day.
Thank you.
Right. Next, we will hear from John Jesuit. So John, if you're on. Oops, there we go. All right. Well, thanks, Mr. Jesuit. If you've seen how this works, so why don't you please proceed with sharing your story with us?
Okay, well, I'm just gonna follow the paperwork as a guideline. So yeah, I was adopted as a baby, but my case happens my sophomore year in high school. My dad's job got transferred to Stoughton, Wisconsin, from the suburbs of Chicago. I worked for American Family Insurance, and I hung out with a lot of kids, and a lot of them smoked pot. So that's a lot of my free time was doing, and so somewhere in 2002. May 12th, 2002, I got in trouble with the law. I was riding around with someone that I knew at the time that what happened was there was another kid that got caught stealing like a scale from the science room from the school or whatever. And so he worked at the police to set up myself and somebody else at the park, and we showed up there. I was at my friend's house at the time, and we showed up at the park, and he was going to deliver him some marijuana. I was in the passenger seat, and he got pulled over, and I think like they came behind us, and all of a sudden he threw it into my lap, and then he got out the car and spoke to the officer. So I think I put it in like the driver's side door or underneath the seat or something like that. And we go down to the police station, and being 17, and I believe I was high at the time, so I don't know what was going on. I got charged with manufacture, delivery of THC. And my parents at the time didn't have any money, so didn't have any legal defense. I got out on bail, and then that same friend that I was with that drove us to the park. I was at a party and I got in a fight. There was booze involved, and there was marijuana involved with everyone there, and I hit the other kid, and next couple days, I got took him into jail again, and yeah, yep. So that's that, and
what have you done since then, John? You talk a little bit about what happened afterwards between then and now.
Yeah, yep. Yeah, I've been working in hotels since.
Okay. Questions from the board? Noble?
John, how are you doing?
I'm okay. Doing laundry right now.
Okay. Have you had any contact with the victim of the battery since then?
No, because part of the court order was to not have me, and then I thought to try and find him and talk to him, but I don't want to do that because of the court order.
Okay. Thank you.
Anthony?
Hey, John. Well, there's a couple of things I want to say, and hopefully this is okay. You know, it's all right to be emotional about it. So I've been through this situation myself, especially when you're going backwards, to be able to talk about something that, you know, that you felt like, okay, look, I was wrong for what I've done, but then also, how do I move forward? So, you know, I just want to say that. So it's okay. All right.
Yeah, I've found avenues how to make an income, but it's just like, I guess my life, you know, flipped upside down.
Yeah. And I think I believe Noble had kind of asked this question as well, as far as, can you just talk about a little bit what have you done as far as with your education?
Well, yeah. I graduated, started MATC, and I transferred to UW on social welfare. It was a great experience, and but you know, you need like a license for that. I don't even know, so I didn't try and go for my master's. I got my CDL. I'm a taxi driver for the city, and I don't even know why I'm emotional right now, because I guess it's because, looking back at it, if I would have known the things that I'd known, I would have went to drug court, and that would have been it. I would have went for the deferment avenue, and that's what I think everyone should do. It's just I feel like I got the book slammed on me, which is, you know what, they can do that, but that's just what happened, I guess.
Thank you.
Nadia?
Hey, John. Would you be able to talk to us a little bit about like what your dream job is? Is it in social welfare? Is it in something related?
Well, it'd be that, or try and maybe sell insurance, because that's what my dad did. So, but I don't even know if that would hinder it. Well, the thing that, which I don't know what's going to happen, but it's just weird how my actions at that young of an age, you know, apply today. That's just.
Well, I thank you for appearing before us, John. I know it's not an easy form to do it by Zoom, but, you know, some of those hindrances that, you know, conviction from this long ago, you're doing the right step by applying for a pardon, because that's how you get those hindrances lifted. So I thank you for your time. You'll hear from us in about a month, but hope you have a good day.
You too. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Next, we will be hearing from Gregory Mallett. So Gregory.
Hello. Hello, can you hear me?
We can hear you just fine. Yep. So you've seen how this works. So why don't you talk to us a little bit about your conviction from many, many years ago, and then I'll open up for questions.
Well, 42 years ago, cocaine popped on the scene. Back then. It was wasn't as popular as, and it was just a young and the in crowd, and being in nightlife and the disco scene back then, and it kind of fit in and make you seem like a fluent part of the crowd. So, and then but then it was much more expensive, and I was a factory worker at the time, and so when I was experimenting with it, I was able, like I said, wasn't able to afford it on the salary that I was getting there working in a factory. And then I dabbling in here and there. And then once I my back, and then I was off work for a while, and my company wasn't able to provide half-day work for me. So I was off for work for a while. And then I got bored, and like I said, I got to dabbling into it a little more. And then started selling it a little bit. And then as, got more, into, the nightlife and the scene, I got more deeper involved, selling it. And like I said, eventually sold it to the wrong person, apparently, and received a case for selling such with the intent to deliver. And then after that, I was convicted, pleaded, to get it over with. And at the time, the drug laws was much more lenient too. They could have just slapped me on, judges had much more discretion there. They could have just slapped me on the hand and gave me, threw it out, or even gave me a misdemeanor. But they seemed like that somehow I hadn't learned my lesson. So they gave me a felony and 30 days, in the house correction on Huber law. Cause like I said, I was on half-day restrictions and whatnot. And at that time, I had a time to reflect on my skills, and I had cousins and things who were engineers and stuff. And I was pretty good in mathematics in school. So while I was in there, I was reflecting and going through some of my skills. So maybe I could have to do factory work anymore. And so once I got released from the house arrest at my 30 days, they put me on probation. And fortunately, all this happened for a reason. Like I said, if they wouldn't have gave me the slap or a wrist, more likely I would have, if they would have gave me, I would have reoffended. And so I was introduced to this probation officer, and she was really good. And she was telling me how to resist peer pressure, and got me in this readiness program at MATC, where I received a certificate, and helped me further try to identify my skills. And then therefore, I went back to work, and I started working full time because I got my restrictions, and participate in MATC part-time preparatory courses that because I wouldn't had that many good grades in high school. Mm-hmm. And I was doing preparatory courses and getting ready to take real college courses. And then again, like I said, I re-injured my back. Then I was back out again, and then I was participating in preparatory courses, and then eventually I went and started taking full college courses at MATC. And then after that, I kept returning to work, and after again, I kept re-injuring my back. And eventually they said I wasn't no longer able to work in the factory again. And at that point, I went into a rehabilitation program through DVR and started transferring my college classes over to UWM, where I, received my undergrad degree. And after that, with the felony conviction, I don't know if that was it. They just say you're not a fit. But anyway, after the felony conviction, I was never able to get a job in my field in economics at the time, the bachelor's degree. So I worked at Sears and Roebuck part-time, because again, I had a lot of restrictions from my back injury because I received a permanent disability. And I worked at Sears like six years, part-time and whatnot. And after a while working at Sears, I said, well, maybe if I upgrade my skills and get a master's degree, maybe I'll be more employable. And I pursued my master's degree at MSOE in engineering management. And what took me maybe 4 to 6 years, because I had to write a master's thesis at the time for that program. And after that, Sears closed the department, so I no longer. So I was pursuing my master's degree at MSOE, and I received it. And again, I went back in the workforce, as applying, going through informational interviews because I had a highly demanding master's degree in economic value added, and where I, did information interviews with CEOs, top corporations around, hoping they would take me under their wing and whatnot. And due to my immaturity at the time, not mature enough to, ready for prime the C-suite. So unfortunately, I wasn't able to persuade one of them to go further than the informational interview. And by that time, I was finally granted my disability from Social Security, but at the same time, I was being denied workers' compensation. So that was another hurdle that I was fighting basically on my own without representation. And then for years after pursuing having my master's degree in 1998, I believe it was confirmed. I received this, and finally, I think around 2004, I decided to maybe pursue my doctorates, and therefore I pursued my doctor's degree at Capella University, thinking that'll make you more employable. And again, that was an 8-some-night-year course, to write a dissertation, because that's original work. You have to go in the field and do research and stuff. And again, I pursued it in finance. And again, like I said, so I wrote my dissertation on the market value market value added EVA, economic value added, and how that add values to corporations. And so again, I completed my dissertation and whatnot again, and pursued work again and again. I don't know what it was for, but after the rejection letter. So at that point, I decided to try to pursue my own consulting practice. And then the beauty of my never had much experience in DVR would not fund the consulting practice. They wanted me to enter into various other, try to get experience and whatnot. Again, so after you apply to so many places, you have to start reapplying all over again. And so again, so therefore I was just trying to start my own consulting practice. So in anticipation of this party, last month I launched Strategic Economic Value Added Systems. So I had just now incorporate my LCC and participating that I'll be able to get bonded, and companies would be able to, pursue me now, since I'm, have a part in bonded. And like I'm saying, I don't launch my own business now, Strategic Economic Value Added Systems. And right now I'm on LinkedIn, trying to drum up business and solicit customers and whatnot, and tell them the value I can bring to that customer with the broad base of knowledge that I have.
Great, thanks, Mr. Mallett. Questions from the board? Well, you're very thorough, Mr. Gregory. I really appreciate your time, and congratulations on, all of your accomplishments. And you'll hear from us in about a month in terms of the outcome of today's process, but hope you have a good weekend.
And I appreciate all the, sitting before you all, giving me all my predicament like that I've been going through.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
All right, our final applicant for the 8:30 to 10 a.m. session is Philip Rowe. So Philip, thanks for turning your camera on. You've seen how this works. Thanks for being patient. So please proceed.
Good morning. I'd like to say thank you to the board for giving me this opportunity. In 2002, I was a drug dealer. I'm just being totally transparent. I'm not proud of it. I'm owning up to who I was at that point in my life. In the fall of 2002, I was arrested and charged with 5 counts of manufacturing delivery of cocaine, 1 count of possession of cocaine, 1 count of possession of THC. Through the courts, I was offered a plea agreement. If I pled guilty to the 5 delivery charges, they would dismiss the 2 possession charges. I took the plea. In the beginning of March 2003, I went for sentencing. I was sentenced to 7 years probation, condition of probation, 2 years in the county jail with work release. The end of March 2003, I turned myself in to start the 2-year sentence. As soon as I got in there, I was made aware of a local church program that was offered to Hubert inmates, where Calvary Gospel Church would come and pick us up on a Sunday afternoon. They would take us to the church. We would do an AODA class. After the AODA class, we were allowed to have our families come, have dinner with us, spend time with them, and then we would stay for church afterwards. And they would take us back to Huber at the end of church. At that program, at that AODA class, and in Huber for the 2 years, I seen and learned the devastation and destruction that drugs have on our community, families, and people's lives. And I was contributing to that in 2002. In them 2 years in that class, and in Huber, seeing people's lives being affected by what I was a part of, it changed my life forever. I wanted nothing to do with it ever again. The end of March 2000, I did my whole Huber sentence, 2 years. I didn't lose my Huber one single time. The reason I was given the probation with Huber is because I am employed at the City of Madison Streets Division, and I was employed there. So my judge, Flanagan, took a chance on me, giving me the Huber, and I was very grateful for that. End of March 2005, I was released. Everything's going well in my life. I'm raising my kids. Everything's going good. And then the spring of 2008 happens. I made a terrible decision. I was drinking. I had gotten drunk and decided I was going to drive home. I was pulled over and charged with my first and only OWI. I can say thankfully that nobody was hurt. I didn't hurt anybody myself. But I can also say that that was the last time I drank alcohol. I've been now sober for almost 14 years. I quit drinking for a few different reasons. I'd like to share a couple of those with you quick. One, my probation officer took a chance on me just like my judge did. She didn't extend my probation. She didn't revocate me. She gave me a chance and said, Phil, you better take this to heart. And I did. Another reason is I work for the Streets Division, I said. I retained a CDL. So the way I understand it is after March 2005, your second OWI, you lose your CDL for many, many years, more than I'm willing to find out about. I'm not going to risk my career for drinking alcohol. So that was the spring of 2008. Everything goes well to March of 2010. All my fees are paid up. I am discharged from supervision with no problems. From then until 2017, I'm just raising my kids, working at the city, coaching youth sports, involved in the community. 2017, my son's going to a sophomore year of high school. A position at his local high school here in Madison comes available in the athletic department. So I applied for the position, and I was hired as the athletic equipment manager at Madison East High School, and I've been there ever since. And this is where I say I kind of started trying to give back to the community and making a difference. I talked to all the young people that I've gotten to know that come through there, explain my story of where I was at in 2002, that I was a drug dealer, that I was mesmerized by the money, the cars, the clothes, the jewelry, all the things that people sell you with on to try to get involved with drugs. And that drugs are about 80, in my opinion, 80 to 90% of the crime is committed because of that. And they don't want to get involved in it. I explain about my drunk drivings, everything to try and help young people because I think they're our future. So that was 2017. I started that. I still work there till this day. I've been with the Streets Division now in the City of Madison for 21 years. I started as a laborer, was promoted to street machine operator 1, operator 2, operator 3. And I can actually gladly say about a year and a half ago, I was promoted into management, and I'm a supervisor with the Streets Division now. Excuse me, I'm extremely nervous. This is important to me. About last fall, the Streets Division sent me to Fox Valley Technical College to be certified as a DOT third-party CDL tester. So now any new operators that are hired in the city that need a CDL, I am the one that gives them the test, and if they pass, they go to the DMV and get their CDL. I'm hoping in the spring here, when things slow down at the Streets Division, I'm going to start my own business on the side as a third-party CDL tester for myself as well. Like I said, Why do I want this pardon? To me, it's the final piece to the puzzle. It's the last chapter of who I was in 2002, and now who I am in 2022. I'm not that person anymore. I would want to be able to explain to these people, anybody, not just the youth at the high school, but anybody, that you can make mistakes. If you pick yourself up, you turn your life around and you change, and you don't go back to the same ways of life, that you can get a second chance. And this is very important to me for that reason. Like I said, this is the last piece to that puzzle. It'd be a huge weight lifted off my shoulders if I was to get a pardon. And a side note, a couple of the guys that I hang out with at the Streets Division here do a fishing trip in Canada every year. It'd be nice to be able to maybe go with them. So try to get it all in 5 to 7 minutes.
No, thanks, Mr. Rowe. Could you talk a little bit back in 1995, you had an arrest for misdemeanor battery. Can you talk about that? What happened?
Yep. I was dating a girl. Her and I got into an altercation. She called the police on me. I got arrested because somebody goes to jail for domestic battery. And I did first offenders program. I think I did a little bit of Huber time at that time. And then it was taken care of, but that's what it was. I got into a, argument with my girlfriend. She called the police, and someone goes to jail, and I took the responsibility and did the Huber time, and it was over.
Okay. Other questions from the board? All right. Well, thanks, Mr. Rowe. Appreciate you sharing your story with us. You'll hear from us in about a month in terms of the outcome of this process, but hope you have a good weekend.
Thank you.
All right. And with that, we wrapped up a little bit early. And because we did notice the next group for 10 o'clock a.m., we will take a break and we'll reconvene shortly before 10 a.m. and go back with our next batch of applicants. So thank you. So board members are free to mute yourself and turn off your camera until then. All right, folks, we'll get started in just a minute. All right, well, welcome everybody. With it being 10 o'clock, we will get started with our next morning session of the March 25th Pardon Advisory Board hearing. Welcome everybody. My name is Ryan Nelsenstroen. I'm Governor Evers' Chief Legal Counsel and also have honors serving as the Governor's as Chair of the Pardon Advisory Board. I'm going to go through a few housekeeping items and then we will jump right into things. So first, just be aware we are live streaming. This isn't a public meeting, so we are live streaming this on YouTube and also Wisconsin Eye, which is Wisconsin's version of C-SPAN. Therefore, please do two things for me so that we can maintain audio quality and help facilitate the meeting. One is please make sure that you're muted until it's your turn to speak. It looks like just about everybody is muted. When I call you up, please unmute yourself, and you can do so by just clicking the little microphone button in the lower left-hand corner of your screen. Similarly, with the exception of the pardon board members, and when it's your turn to speak, please have your camera off. It makes it a little bit easier for us to know who's talking. You can do that the same way by clicking the little camera icon in the lower left-hand corner of your screen. And then when it's your turn to speak, you can just click on that and turn your camera back on. I'm going to be calling folks up in the order that they are listed on today's open meeting notice. So we'll start with Eric, then Robert, then Deshawn, then Ning, Harold, Corey, Jason, Joshua, and then Adam. When it is your turn to speak, please unmute yourself, turn your camera on. And then the governor's office sent you some questions to answer. Please be concise. So you'll have about 5 to 7 minutes to answer those questions. I want to make sure that the board members have opportunity to ask you questions. And so when it's your turn to speak, in short, we want to hear how you ended up with your felony conviction. We want specifics about it, not just I was convicted, this happened. We want to know why it happened and what happened. We also want to know what happened in terms of your sentence and afterwards and why you believe you've earned the chance to receive a pardon from Governor Evers. After you get done speaking, you can hang up or jump off. People always do that. You do not need to stay on. You can go about the rest of your day. It's the benefit of a virtual hearing. When we get through all of the applicants, we as a board will be meeting in closed session and we will be making decisions on who to recommend to Governor Evers for a pardon. If you receive majority support from the 4 board members present, that means 3 of us, your application will be forwarded to Governor Evers and he'll make a final decision on whether to grant you a pardon. If you don't receive majority support or if Governor Evers decides not to grant you a pardon, you'll receive a denial letter from the Pardon Advisory Board and you'll be able to reapply within 18 months of the date of that letter. You'll receive either a denial letter or you will receive a pardon from the governor in about a month from today's hearing, but it might vary a little bit. But usually it's about 4, 5, 6 weeks, give or take. Lastly, I'm going to be introducing the board members and then we will jump right to Eric. So the board members we have present here today, we have Nadia Perez-Reyes. She is the Assistant Deputy Secretary of the Wisconsin Department of Children and Families and also a former public defender. We also have Noble Ray, who is the former Chief of Police for the city of Madison and now does implicit bias training for law enforcement agencies around the country. And we also have Anthony Cooper, who is a vice president at the Nehemiah Center working in reentry services and also does violence prevention work in addition. And with that, we will jump to you, Eric. So Eric, let me see if you're on. Are you there, Eric? And if so, you could unmute yourself. All right, well, we will have somebody from the governor's staff reach out to Eric, and then we will go to our next applicant. So Robert Beasley.
Yes, I'm here.
All right, well, thanks for joining us, Robert. You get to be our lucky first person for this session. So as I said at the top, please describe, briefly, but also in details in terms of how you ended up with your bail jumping and fleeing charge and what happened afterwards and why you think you should receive a pardon. So please proceed, Robert.
Well, I received the bail jumping and fleeing charge after I was let out on my own recognizance for a domestic situation with a living girlfriend. I was in love with somebody who didn't love me. So I attempted to reach out to her while I was in jail. I went back home like I shouldn't have did. And the police was called again. This time I was late getting home from work and I was accused of being with another woman. So she got her back and launched at me with a bat several times, and I had a pocket knife. I left out of the house, bagged out of the house, got to my car, and was driving off. Matter of fact, I got about 2 blocks away, but apparently her neighbor had called the police already, and they stopped me. And because I didn't stop immediately after they activated the sirens and the lights, which I didn't know I had to stop immediately, I was on a one-way street, I think on Burleigh. Both sides of the streets was full, so I was trying to get to a safe place to pull over. So they charged me with felony fleeing because I didn't stop immediately. That's how I got that charge. Now, I'm a little old, so I had to write this stuff down. My parole was revoked in 2001, I believe it was. Another situation, living with a young lady who called the police and alleged me of choking her, which we found out later was untrue. Because I went back to work with my same employer after she had went to them and told them that she was just trying to scare me. But that ain't what happened. I went back to jail for 10 more months. Okay, what have I done since getting off parole? I've completed 10 months, or I completed the 10 months of revocation. I returned to OIC-GM as a welfare reform financial employment planner 3. I remained there until July 2003. In 2004, I moved back to Mississippi to take care of 2 mentally ill brothers, where I was hired at Mississippi Valley State University as the technical assistant in the Office of Admission and Recruitment in 2005. While working full-time at MVSU, I was admitted and attended the Graduate Criminal Justice Program. In 2006, I had to withdraw because I had a heart attack. And after that, I worked at the university until 2007. The spring of 2007, I admitted myself to the Mississippi Department of Veteran Affairs for alcohol, drug, and trauma program. At that time, I was diagnosed with PTSD from the military, which I did not know. I was discharged in 1979, and I wasn't diagnosed until 2007. So I had got into a lot of trouble, a lot of relationship issues, anger issues, there's all the stuff that go along with PTSD that I was unaware of. After completion of that program, I was hired as a career specialist for Arbor Education and Training, where I prepare young adults how to look for, find, and keep a job, teach them interview skills, application preparation, and resume, and how to be successful in a job interview. In 2010, I joined the American Legion, where I am the Veteran Service Officer and the Public Relations Officer. I have been responsible for developing and implementing town hall meetings with Congressman Benny G. Thompson, the director of the VA Hospital and Regional Office, to address veterans' concerns and issues. I host a weekly live radio call-in show for veterans in the listening and viewing areas on Facebook, where we encourage Americanism, voter education, registration. I have successfully assisted more than 300 veterans apply for and receive disability compensation from the Department of Veteran Affairs. I am the chair of the steering committee against gun violence among youth in LaFleur County, Mississippi. I organize our Veterans Day Parade and our annual Winter Fest and Salute to Veterans on January 1st annually. I am working with the state legislature to establish a transportation system in the Mississippi Delta for veterans and to have each branch of the military emblems be placed on the disabled veterans car tags in Mississippi. I am working with Judge Carlos Palmer in establishing a municipal veterans court to divert veterans from jail into treatment programs provided by the Department of Veteran Affairs. I am also working with the Convention and Visitors Bureau and Chamber of Commerce to establish 10% discount for veterans on purchases with proof of honorable discharge. In 2012, I admitted myself again to the VA hospital ADTT program for alcohol abuse. That state was when I was diagnosed with post-traumatic stress disorder from the military. During that program, I learned to identify my emotions and not self-medicate to deal with my feelings. After completing that 30-day program, I enrolled into a weekly group session once a week until the pandemic came up, then they were suspended. In 2013, I went back to church and recommitted my life to Christ and joined the New Zion Missionary Baptist Church, where I'm an active member and sing with the church's male chorus, the Men of Zion. I assist with food distribution to shut-in of the church. What else? We also provide mentorship to the Juvenile Detention Center. In 2004, I got married to my childhood sweetheart. Unfortunately, I lost her in 2007 while on the operating table. Her birthday was yesterday, so y'all excuse me. In 2014, I rolled into the Master of Social Work program at Mississippi Valley State University, and I completed those requirements in 2017. During the same period, I was a volunteer with AmeriCorps as a Mississippi Veteran Resource Coordinator. Presently, I am the Veteran Resource Coordinator at the Greenwood Community Center, where I am also the Vice President of their board. I assist veterans with filing initial claims, appeals, all the way to Washington. I also distribute food boxes from the food pantry at the community center. I am an active member of the LaFleur Lodge 342, Prince Hall affiliated, Edward S. Baker's, number 145 Consistory, Jewel J. Carpenter, chapter number 12, Order Eastern Star. And I'm also the patron and associate patron in the 11th district. Why do I want to partner? The Greenwood Community Center and I, representing Post 200 of the American Legion, is working to establish a homeless shelter for veterans in the Mississippi Delta. Also, I would like to challenge the equality and justice for all people who are marginalized by running for city or county government. I have been alcohol and drug free for 8 years now. That's all I have.
Thanks, Mr. Beasley, and thank you for all of your work helping the community, especially your fellow veterans. Questions from the board? I think I just have one question. I think I know the answer to this, but could you just walk me through, there was, with your PTSD and then, alcohol abuse, it sounds like you're had some very difficult relationships. Can you just walk me through, there was a number of charges, but they were all dismissed just for domestic abuse in the 90s. Can you just provide a little bit of context for me?
Well, from a social worker perspective, I had most of the criteria or symptoms of PTSD. I just didn't know. I had no clue what was wrong with me until I was diagnosed. But based on the DSM-5, I had a lot of the criteria and was getting in trouble with it because at that time when I was discharged, I don't even think there was a diagnosis for PTSD, so there was no intervention or treatment. But once I went to graduate school and learned about it myself, it gave me more insight on what I needed to do to help myself.
Thank you. Any other questions from the board? But you're very thorough in your presentation, your application. So thanks, Robert. And again, thank you for all of your good work in the community and helping others and using your experience to benefit others. Hope you have a good weekend, and you'll find out about the outcome of today's process in about a month, give or take.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
Thanks. All right, we will try to loop back to Eric. Eric, are you there, Eric Asmus? Oh, looks like you're on, Eric. Can you hear me? All right, looks like we're still having some issues. So Eric,
are you there?
Yep, we are here. So can you hear me?
Oh, yeah, I can hear you.
Okay,
you perfect. Hear me?
Yep, okay. We can hear you just fine. So
I'm very sorry about that this morning.
Oh no, you are not the first. Don't worry.
I had to keep switching devices until I got one to work.
Yeah, it's happened to me even sharing it, which is always awkward. So don't worry about it at all. As I always tell folks, you know, it's the downside of Zoom is we get these issues, but the upside is we all saved a lot of time by not having to drive into Madison. So
exactly.
Why don't you just please proceed, Eric, in terms of answering those questions, in terms of how you ended up with your 2 felony convictions, what happened, you know, and then what happened afterwards, and why you think you've had a chance to receive a pardon. So please proceed.
All right. The reason I was, you know, put on, you know, probation, why I received these felonies. The first case was, it was the high school. You know, we entered the building and stuff, and I just, you know, was all in there. We were doing whatever, lit off a bunch of fire extinguishers and stuff. And we were wandering around in there and, you know, on the site. And then we ended up, you know, someone called the cops, of course, and we got arrested and so forth and so on with that. We never, you know, took anything, you know, from the, you know, the property. It was just pretty much just, you know, kids, you know, lighting off fire extinguishers and, you know, stuff like that. You know, that one's pretty straightforward. And then my other case was, you know, Ingies. And we was there 4 of us. And they wanted to break into the building. And I was so against it and everything like that. I guess I was there. I was part of it. And I knew it was wrong. And as I sat there and thought about it, I just got back in the vehicle and I left them guys there. And then just a couple minutes down the road, I got pulled over and I got, you know, arrested and, you know, booked for being a party to crime to the, you know, breaking and entering into the Ingies. And Ingies at the time, and, you know, for around here, it was a liquor store. Mm-hmm. And that's what their means was, because we were younger, that they were going to get liquor and stuff like that. And I just, you know, left because I didn't want no part of it. You know, after I was already there, I knew I did wrong. And I just packed up and left shop and left them there. And then I, you know, got party to crime and, you know, served all my jail time. It was 3 years probation. And the what is that called? Restitution was joint and several. And for, while I was on probation, nobody else was paying. I kept paying mine. And then I got to the point where it's like my probation officer was on my side because I was doing so good. And, you know, there was no need to supervise me because I was part of the community, volunteering and stuff. So I ended up just paying it all off, you know, the joint and several. I got off probation a year early. You know, a 3-year term, I did 2 years. And I did a lot of volunteer time while I was in jail. You know, the time while I sat in there, I swamped, helped, you know, clean the jail and stuff like that to give back for what I did and did wrong. And I still to this day do a lot of volunteer work because I enjoy it. I volunteer for a local football organization for the school, you know, to help kids, you know, with football and training and stuff like that. You know, I'm trying to think what else. So we only got 15 minutes. I said the joint and several. Ingies, okay. I'm just looking at what my case numbers are here so I can explain everything to you guys. I did my jail time. I said that. Paid off all that. Like I said, I only had the 2 cases, and they're pretty straightforward. There's not really much to say besides, you know, now I've always worked full time ever since, you know, even when I got in trouble, I was always working full time. And that was part of the criteria being on probation. You had to maintain a full time, you know, job and, you know, have housing. And I always did that. And in the meantime, I got married, you know, because this happened over 20 years ago. I got married, got 5 kids now. Now, as of today's date, I am disabled because I got hip problems. I'm waiting to have a hip surgery, and I can't have that until I'm in my 50s. The doctor told me I keep going in and having, you know, like little minor stuff so I don't have so much pain in my hip and stuff. So I'm, you know, my ability to walk is getting less and less, you know, and having 5 kids, you know. So I try keeping up with them as good as I can with having hip problems. And that's the only reason I'm not working full time now. So I take care of the household, and my wife works, and, you know, all that stuff. My kids help a lot, and I keep on still volunteering. You know, I like volunteering with the community and stuff and giving back for what I did wrong. You know what I mean? So people know who the real person is, and that's me.
Well, thanks, Eric. Questions from the board? Noble?
Yeah, Eric, I have not a question, more of a comment.
Okay.
I know, are you living in the state of Wisconsin?
Yes.
I noticed one of the reasons for why you're seeking a pardon is to restore your voting rights.
Yes, that's, you know, that was one of the big things. I am sorry that I didn't mention that. I was just trying to get the real stuff. I mean, that's real too. I want to be able to start going to vote with my wife and, you know, do like what real adults can do, you know, give back to, you know, what my opinion is with the, you know, voting, you know, and, you know, helping out that way, you know,
Eric,
and be able to, you know, go ahead.
if I could, I'm not sure if you're aware of this, but as long as you're off supervision, you are able to vote. You can confirm that independently, but you are able to vote in the state of Wisconsin.
Okay. See, when I called my not probation officer, my old attorney, but he passed away now, and they told me that I lost it. Even in court, they said that, you know, and that's not the only reason. And, you know, to be able to hunt with my kids, you know, because we're all outdoors people. You know what I mean? I just lost my dad, so I can't do that with him anymore.
Okay, Eric,
you know, they always go up north.
Okay, Eric, if I could, just to close this one out, you can independently verify that, but as long as you're off of the Department of Justice supervision in the state of Wisconsin, you can vote. But you can independently verify that. Okay?
Oh, okay. You know, I appreciate the advice too, you know, and that, you know, there's other concerns too, you know, that was one of them, you know, now I figured that out, and you know what I mean, to be able to hunt with my family, and, you know, was with my dad, but he literally just passed away of COVID and stuff. So, you know, I won't be able to do that, but I want to pass it on with my, you know, my other family, where they all go up to the cabin and stuff, and I never could go now because of, you know, my stupidity when I was younger. You know what I mean? It's, you know, I don't, you know, the whole bit is I don't let it get to that point. I keep going on with life, keep volunteering, keep giving back. You know what I mean? My time's coming, you know what I mean? And now look at, I'm talking to you, and not that this is a permanent thing or a promise that you got stuff, but my point is I'm trying, you know what I mean? And I got to speak my stuff.
Thanks, Eric, for appearing before us, and really sorry to hear about your father. You'll hear about the outcome of today's process in about a month, but hope you have a good weekend, and good luck watching all those kiddos.
Yep, and thanks for you know, listening to me and what I had to say. I appreciate it. You guys have a good day.
Thanks.
Bye.
All right, next we will be hearing from Deshaun Beck. Deshaun, it looks like just need you to turn your camera on and unmute yourself. There we go. Well, thanks for appearing before us, Deshaun. If you could just, as you've seen before a couple of times, talk about in terms of how you ended up with your one felony conviction, what happened afterwards, and why you would like to get a pardon. So please proceed.
Thank you. I received the felony back in 2002. The details around that, I took a check that I received from a friend. It was in exchange for a car I was selling at the time, and put that check into my personal bank account. I was unaware that it was from a fraudulent account. So long story short, I had to go to court for it. I got a lawyer, talk with the judge. I was held accountable, which I believe I deserve, because I didn't do the necessary background or, you know, how do I say it? I didn't really pursue, how this transaction was going. So I to have to be held accountable for it. So I received a felony of forgery uttering. So I guess in simple terms, I was trying to pass a bad check. So I had to pay the money back. So I paid the money back. I was on extended supervision. So at the time I was working for SBC, now AT&T. So I was put on Huber Law. So I was at home, but I was going to work. I served the whole time. I believe it was maybe about 6 to 9 months. I was on Huber Law. So I was at home and could only go to work and come home. And after that, in 2002, just the changes I pursued in my life, I went back to church. In 2005, became a dedicated member at Ephesians Missionary Baptist Church. I was there from 2005 to 2018. And I worked just in the ministry as a music director, teacher in Vacation Bible School and Sunday School. I started preaching in 2011. So I've been preaching since 2011. In 2013, or 2012, I'm sorry, I took custody of my 2 little cousins. And it actually started me on my journey of actually trying to put my life back together because I set some goals that I wanted to achieve. So my little cousins that I took in 2013 was 5 and 6. It was a young lady and a young male that I didn't want to go into the foster care system. So they've been with me for like 10 years. And so when I got them, I went back to college, got my associate's degree in 2016 at Cardinal Stritch University. 2020, I got my bachelor's degree. Currently, I'm pursuing my master's degree in elementary education. And so my whole goal in this, I always wanted to impact Milwaukee City. So my long-term goal is eventually open up a school to help, the inner city of Milwaukee. And so I know I needed to address this situation. It hasn't been a roadblock in regards because it's geared, I guess it's categorized as something else. But I just felt like it was a mistake that I made. And I just don't want any hindrances as I move forward trying to obtain my goals. As a individual who hopes to open a school and be able to help our city in that way. So I'm not sure if I answered all the questions.
No, that was very thorough and great. How are your 2 cousins doing now?
They're doing pretty good. They're teenagers now.
Yeah.
And that's a whole nother battle, but they're currently, one just turned 17, one is 15, it'll be 16 on April 6th. I've seen some significant changes in their lives in regards to, they came from a situation where they were watching their mother be a part of domestic violence. And so that's why the state took them from her due to neglect. And so when I provided them a stable, environment, had consistent high expectations, very smart. Currently, they go to Mesmer, but they have excelled in school with what we've done. And my church, a lot of the schools that we've been a part of, been very supportive, just creating a village to help them get to where they want to be. So yeah, they're doing awesome. I currently work at a school, Prince of Peace, under Seton Catholic Schools. And I just love working. I love teaching. And I hope today to be a principal. So
that's great. Questions from the board? All right, well, you're getting off easy today, Mr. Beck. Thank you for appearing before us and sharing your story with us. And as you've heard me say before, you'll hear in terms of the outcome of today's process in about a month, but hope you have a good weekend.
All right, thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Take care.
All right.
All right, next we will be hearing from Ning Ku. So Ning, looks like your camera's on. Just need you to unmute yourself.
Hi, can you guys hear me?
Yep, we can hear you just fine. So you've seen how this works, so please proceed.
All right. Okay, on December This is my first time on Zoom, so bear with me. I might be nervous.
Oh, you're fine. You're fine. Go
Okay.
ahead.
On December 29th, 2001, I was 20 years old. Me and a couple of friends were at someone's house drinking, and I had a little too much to drink and decided to drive myself and two other friends to the convenience store for some snack. On our way back to the house, there was 2 curves on the street. I lost control on the second curve and hit a parked car, and it injured my friend in the back seat. Upon impact, instead of doing the right thing and report the accident, me and the front passenger got out and fled the scene without realizing that the backseat passenger was injured and needed medical help. When the officers found us at the house and questioned us, I pretended to not know about the accident. We were then transported to the station, and I told them the story. I was convicted and sentenced on March 26, 2004 to 12 months in Sheboygan County Jail with Huber and paid restitution, but it was converted to civil judgment due to failure to pay. During my sentencing, I was ordered not to be in contact with the injured victim. Me and him have not met or talked since. After my release, I was working between temporary jobs and then moved to Minnesota in 2007. I met my wife in Minnesota and got my GED and citizenship in Minnesota as well. We have a 9-year-old daughter, and we live together in a house we bought in Minnesota 3 years ago. I currently hold a shipping position at a window company in Cottage Grove, Minnesota. I am asking to be considered for a partner so I can restore my Second Amendment and also help ease any obstacles I may encounter with future job changes. You know, I made a positive impact in my life, and I would be really grateful if given a second chance. That's all.
Thank you. Questions from the board? All right. Well, thanks for appearing before us, Mr. Koo. You'll hear from us about a month, and hope you have a good day.
Thank you, Ryan.
Thank you. All right. Next, we'll be hearing from Harold Cross. So, Harold, thanks for waiting patiently down there. If you wouldn't mind unmuting yourself, and then, yeah, you've seen how this works, so please proceed.
Yeah. Back in 1990, well, I used to drive the school bus. And had my first child, just trying to give her a better life. And school bus wasn't paying anything. So I made the decision, instead of looking for a better job or a second job, I made the decision to try to sell drugs, which was the worst decision of my life. You know, as a role model for my nieces, nephews, and little cousins, I look back on that, and it's a dark cloud in my life. And you know, meeting people all the time, sooner or later they end up asking me, because you know now people look you up when they meet you. They ask me questions, oh, you don't seem like the type to do this or do that, and I can't make any excuses about why I did it. But like I said, that's a black cloud in my life, and I made the conscious decision after being locked up that I'll be a better citizen and work harder for the things I get, for things I want, even when it comes down to, you know, getting a second job. And that's what I've been doing. But since then, I was sentenced to work release and probation, which I did without any violations. And I ended up getting off of probation early after I completed my community service. Like I said, since then, I've just been working hard all my life. And, you know, like I said, I just regret it. I regret that decision that I made. And like I said, it's embarrassing when I meet somebody and that question always seems to come up. And I just want to get that dark cloud from over my head.
Thanks, Mr. Cross. Questions from the board? Mr. Cross, I know this was dismissed, but could you talk a little bit? It looks like you had an arrest in 2003. What happened?
What happened? 2003?
Yeah. Is that ringing bells? It was on your background check, but that doesn't mean it's correct. So I just want to see if you have any recollection of that.
No, I do not.
Okay. Anthony, did you have a question?
Yeah, I just had a question as far as if you can just talk a little bit more. What are you doing now currently?
Well, currently, I'm disabled. I started working for the city of Milwaukee in sanitation, and I hurt my back that required back surgery, and now I'm totally disabled.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions from the board? All right, well, thanks, Mr. Cross, for...
I'm sorry, Ryan, this is Attorney
Yeah.
Scott Conley. I filed the petition for him. I just want to comment on the 2003 background check. I did not see anything on my records either. I did a check on that. I went to the district attorney. I didn't see anything. I'm sorry if it's on there. I didn't address it, but I never saw it.
No, there's no need to apologize. The background checks can be both over and under inclusive in terms of how I could go on and on. They're not 100% accurate, but it is something just to be aware of. It does show up on there, but it can be because of like somebody with a very similar name. It sometimes pulls it. So that might be something worth looking into. So it's not on there.
Right. Appreciate it. Thank you, guys.
All right. Well, we will next go to our next applicant, Corey Schwaman. And you can sign off, Mr. Cross. You don't need to stay on. All right, so Corey, you've seen how this works a couple of times, so please proceed.
All right, thank you everyone for being here today. I really appreciate it. To start off, me and my roommates were short on money that I owed them. I only made $3 an hour. I was doing masonry work. They planned to rob a gas station. They convinced me to drive. I owed them money for rent and stuff. They seen a cop car and decided not to go through with it. My roommates also came up with a plan to rob a bar, but I convinced them not to go through with it. My roommates got arrested shortly after that and for committing other crimes, which I had moved out and moved back to my parents' house. Didn't want to be a part of that anymore. So they turned me in to get less time for their sentence. Okay. I spent 9 months in jail, which I spent most of my time working off community service. I did laundry and took out the trash, finished up my jail time, getting a job at Whitewater Car Wash. I finished community service, picking up trash along the highway. After being in jail, I have paid back all my restitution. I finished my 7 years probation, which me and my probation officer got along. I've finished my probation in a call-in system once a month because I was doing good, in which I'm truly sorry for my crimes. In the last 28 years, I built my first house. I've spent time with family. I raised 2 kids, Ava, my daughter, who wants to be a nurse in pediatrics after finishing her schooling. And I also coached on her soccer team. And Eric, my son, who wants to be in the Marines, which when done with school, I also helped Eric with his baseball team. I've also held a steady job for the last 28 years. My brother, Sean, my sister, Kelly, and her husband, Greg, and my parents, who are very religious, support me in becoming the man I am today. I would also like to keep moving forward and getting jobs that I have been, the doors have been closed on because of my felony. I would also like to go hunting with my son and my family. I know I'm not perfect, but I believe I deserve a second chance.
Thanks, Corey. Questions from the board? All right, well, thanks for appearing before us, Corey. You'll hear from us in about a month in terms of the outcome of the process, but hope you have a good day and feel free to sign off.
I hope you guys all have a great weekend. Thank you.
Thanks. All right, next we will be hearing from James Beach. James, let me see if you're on. All right, there we go. Well,
it's Jason.
Oh, sorry, Jason. I was using
okay.
your middle name. My apologies. So,
that's okay.
So, Mr. Beach, you've seen how this works. Please proceed.
All right, thank you. Thanks for your time. In 2002, I was charged and convicted of a felony evading. That was not the only charge I got that day. I was heavily under the influence of alcohol and THC. I was sentenced on November 14th, 2002. I was sentenced with 90 days in jail, 2 years probation, AODA, and restitution. I served my sentence, paid my restitution, did my probation. I had a really good relationship with both of my probation officers. I had one in Columbia County, and then I was asked if I could transfer down to Dane to be closer to work at the time. And they were both really great people to work with. I was glad I actually got to meet them. They had a lot of encouraging stuff and helped me through a lot of things. Things that I've done since my conviction. I did serve all my probation, didn't have a problem with it, paid my restitution and fines and stuff. I did lose my license for 5 years, so I worked on getting my license back. I've since then gotten my motorcycle endorsement, became a father. I do like to spend my time helping people, giving them a hand up. I've received lots of hand ups in my life, and I like to pay that forward. In 2020, I was diagnosed with colon cancer. And in the midst of all the COVID and everything, it was quite a chore. It was stage 3. We were fortunate enough to get it out, and chemo did the trick, but we sat down, and this was like 3rd on my bucket list of things I wanted to get taken care of in my lifetime. I'm just would like to apply for this. Just I think I've made a lot of correct changes in my life, and I continue to do so. I hope I have answered the questions good enough. That's about it.
Thanks, Jason. Questions from the board? Noble, and then Nadia.
Yes, Jason, what are you doing now in terms of dealing with your alcohol addiction?
I pretty much quit drinking quite some time ago. I learned a lot. I did one-on-one therapy, and I learned a lot from her while I was in that. And I was actually required to do, at the time, Alcoholics Anonymous. And there was a lot of good things I learned in the time I spent in there with them people. I just pretty much changed, the people I was associating with and the things I was doing. I realized that I wasn't on a good path. And now being a father, I, want to try to do the best I can and show, my son not to make the same mistakes I made in the past.
Just a quick follow-up so that I'm really clear. Are you still drinking?
No, sir.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Nadia?
I had the same questions.
Okay. Thanks. Well, Jason, thanks for appearing before us, and I'm glad that your recovery from the colon cancer appears to be going well, and hope things continue to do so. But appreciate your time and hope you have a good weekend.
You too. Thank you.
Thanks. All right. Next, we will be hearing from Joshua Webb. So Joshua. All right, there we go. Well, you've had the benefit of seeing this a couple of times, Mr. Webb, so please proceed.
All right, everybody can hear me?
Yep.
Okay. I pretty much wrote down everything that I needed to, so bear with me. I, Joshua Webb, sit before you today and ask for pardons of the following 2 cases of burglary to a building, both Class F felonies. I will start off with the first offense that happened on the night of July 7th, 2005. As a party to a crime, some friends and I decided to break in and enter a local doggy daycare, Wagon Tails. We went in that night knowing all employees would be gone. We were made aware of a possible cash box in their office by another friend who was an employee at the time there. We found the cash box, taking it from the office and finding the contents held about $200 to $250. We split it 4 to 5 ways between the 4 or 5 of us. The goal here was to be able to buy some alcohol for the next few nights to come. As teenagers, we did not have a lot of money at the time, going to school with no jobs. And this we thought was the easiest way to get some cash for ourselves. A few days later, myself with the same friends drove back there again at night with the same intentions. This time though, I decided to stay at the vehicle with an end result of really not knowing what was taken from that box. The second offense is very similar, breaking and entering into another local business called Wheels in Motion. Again, with the same objective, the night of July 13th, 2005, some friends and I went through a back door at the roller rink in hopes of another quick way of some cash. We took a cash register, which held inside about $100. I believe some candy and soda was also taken. I later in the day went back to my friend's house to find out one of the friends who was with us at that time went back in the morning and took a change machine. They were breaking into it when I showed up, but I'm not sure of the contents of the amount of money that was inside of that cash box. About a year later, I was made aware the police found out who was involved in those 2 break-ins and was shortly after brought in for questioning. I fully cooperated with the detective, letting him know everything I was involved in. After a few long months of small court hearings, my sentencing was set on January 11th, 2007. I was ordered by court on a no contest plea to 6 months jail time, 2-year probation, restitution of about $4,000, along with an AODA assessment. Between the times of the break-ins and my final court date, I found the love of my life, and about a year later was preparing to be a first-time father. I also was working a job at Schreiber Foods Distributing Center, preparing for all my life changes that were about to happen in front of me. Having a job, I was able to do my jail time through Huber on work release. I was able to obtain a home arrest bracelet after about a month of the Huber house. While inside, I kept my head down and stayed completely straight, knowing my daughter was going to be born in 3 months' time and not ever wanting to go back to a place like that. I was released from house arrest for good behavior and did a total of 3.5 months in all. I was able to watch the birth of my daughter in person, but unfortunately did not get the overnight experience with her and her mother due to having a time I needed to be back at home because of the house bracelet. I soon thereafter paid the full restitution cost of about the $4,000 and was put on a once every 3 month appearance with my probation officer. My last step I completed was an AODA assessment, which they figured I did not need to take any following classes for. I finished the full 2-year probation shortly thereafter with no bumps in the road. As a 35-year-old adult now, the last 16 years of my life have really fallen into place. My wife of 16 years now, and I reside in town of Pulaski with our 2 beautiful children, Haley, our daughter, 15, and Jace, our son, 9 now. We have been homeowners now for the past 10 years and are very contributing members of our town. I've held the same job now for 13 years at MicroStar Quality Services, where I worked myself up from a general production to a production supervisor. Took classes at NWTC for welding, became leaders in safety, quality control. I run all the walkthroughs and am CPR certified. I've also been involved in the hiring and firing processes at that job. I've had some opportunity to travel internationally, but passed because of my background. Outside of work, we are very active through sports and outdoor recreation. I would love to become a coach of my son's baseball little league team. I have only been an assistant coach due to my background checks. Outdoors is my family is huge into hunting. My fondest memories growing up come from my father taking me to our family cabin hunting and fishing. I hope to continue this tradition with my kids someday due to them sharing the interest in the outdoors. My daughter is a freshman in high school now, wanting to become a DNR warden. It makes me very, very proud of her for the love of the outdoors, as well as my son now wanting to become a member of a SWAT team due to visits from my cousin who resides in Madison and is a chief of SWAT, and showing him all of his cool gear when he gets to wear when he comes to town. I am very proud of who our kids are becoming and never want them hindered by a mistake I have made growing up.
Thanks, Mr. Webb. Questions from the board? I just have one question for you. Can you talk a little bit about in 2004, there was a disorderly conduct incident which you pled no contest to. Can you just walk me through that?
Yes, absolutely. So I believe I was a sophomore in high school at the time. As I said, I'm very family oriented. My grandmother, for instance, she would take me up to the cabin when school would ended. Literally the day after school ended, she would take me up to our family cabin. I'd spend 2 months at a time up there with her, coming home on the weekends or throughout the week. My grandmother unfortunately passed away the day before Valentine's Day, and it ended up being the day before I got my driver's license. She passed away in a car accident. That hit me pretty hard. I was also into a lot of sports, baseball being a main contributor to those sports games. I kind of lost focus. I was a big baseball player in high school. I actually had scouts even as a sophomore. I had scouts from the Green Bay local baseball teams looking at me. So with that, I fell on depression, so to say. My mom got me in to see a counselor. When I lost the motivation, I guess to say, to stay in sports, my grandma was a big contributor to that. I'm sorry, I'm a little bit nervous right now, but my counselor at the time, I was kind of waking up in the morning, not wanting to go to school as much as I should have been. My counselor advised my mom the days I didn't want to go to school, if she couldn't get me out of bed, to call the police. They came. I didn't want to go to school, and that kind of led to a little bit of discrepancy where I didn't actually want to go to school, and they advised me to go to school, and it basically came about to that. Okay. Like I said, being a baseball fan, I always was huge into everything sports related and everything like that. I was arrested that day as a runaway, I guess, because I wasn't going to come back home. Kind of yelled at my mom at the time, and she basically deemed me as a runaway, because I said I wasn't going to come back home. I did a little bit of community service through there. I worked for the wildlife sanctuary to pay that debt off, I guess. And that was pretty much what came about with that. Not
so
wanting
it's basically a dispute with your mom, or a domestic dispute with your mom at the time. Okay.
Yep, basically. Yep.
Okay. Any other questions from the board? All right, well, thanks, Mr. Webb, for appearing before us. You've heard this multiple times, but you'll hear from, in terms of outcome of this process, in about a month, but hope you have a good weekend.
All right, great. Thank you. You guys
Thank
too.
you. All right, we'll now go to our final applicant of the morning session, Adam Henning. So Mr. Henning, if you wouldn't mind turning your camera on and unmuting yourself. All right. There we go. All right, well, you've seen how this works, Adam, so please proceed.
Well, in the interest of transparency, there's absolutely no excuse for what I did. It's really just as simple as that. I mean, yes, the backstory is I was in a very acrimonious marriage, and I was married to a person that suffered from a litany of different emotional illnesses and things of that nature. She kicked me out. I was homeless, and I made like the most life-changing mistake that I could possibly make. I got incarcerated for it. I believe it was approximately 16 months I served in incarceration, and my extended supervision was, I think, 8.5 years. While I was incarcerated, I completed the domestic violence program, and I also completed the second segment of that program when I was released. Also, when I was incarcerated, I completed the cognitive intervention program, which was very instrumental in getting me to learn the inner workings of the mind and why we do what we do. That's actually kind of a segue into why I'm going to college. While also too on probation, I never got revocated, paid all of my fees. I was like a model citizen. So much so that my first probation officer, Linda Miller, she retired. And then I got Mike Ellistat. Mike Ellistat was so impressed with what I was doing that I started seeing him like once every 3 months. And eventually it led to me getting off of probation in 2006 when I was supposed to get off of probation in 2010, I believe. Also, after that, I got sole custody of all of my children from my marriages and stuff like that. And because of that, that inspired me to, with the money that I saved doing truck driving, me and my fiance bought a condo. My son, well, I have 2 sons. One son is 23, he's in college as well. One son is 19, he serves in the military in the Navy. And my daughter, she's graduating next year. Also, what I've done is I had enrolled in MATC and made the Dean's List. And then from there, I'm currently attending the University of Arizona Global Campus, to which I'll be graduating and getting my bachelor's degree in psychology in actually 2 months. And from there, I'll be going to grad school to try to get my master's degree in psychology. And the sole purpose of me wanting the pardon is so it helped reacclimate me back into the workforce so I can be effective in terms as a therapist and also employable as a therapist.
All right, thanks, Mr. Henning. Questions from the board? All right, well, thanks for appearing before us, Adam. I appreciate your time, and you'll hear from us in about a month, but hope you have a good weekend.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you. All right, well, that concludes our morning session. We got done a little bit fast here today. I will be making a motion then that we move into closed session for the purposes of considering specific applications and specific and personal financial, medical backgrounds of people and the other reasons listed out in the open meetings notice. Does somebody second it?
Second.
Noble. Anybody opposed? Hearing none, we will go into closed session. So I'm going to put a couple of folks into the waiting room. 22 Pardon Advisory Board hearing. My name is Ryan Nelsonstein, and I'm Governor Evers' Chief Legal Counsel, and also have the honor and privilege is serving as chair of the Pardon Advisory Board. So welcome. I'm going to go through a couple of housekeeping items, and then we're going to jump right into things here. So first and foremost, just be cognizant that we are live streaming this on YouTube. This is an open meeting. The public has a right to see what we're doing here today. So because of that, just be mindful about that in terms of when it's your turn to talk. Two, so we can maintain audio quality, please mute yourself. And you can do so. There's a little microphone icon in the lower left-hand corner of your screen. You can just click on that or touch it if you're on a phone. That will mute yourself. And please do the same with your video until it's your turn to speak. My preference is just the pardon board members have their cameras on, and then whoever's turn it is to speak is the other person who will have their camera on. Speaking of which, when it is your turn to speak, I will call you up. I'm going to be calling people up in the order that they are listed on the open meeting notice for today. So our order is we're going to start with Timothy, then Daniel, then Ryan, then Stephen, then Hatisha, then Gary, Yasmina, Louis, and then Catherine in that order. When I call you up, please unmute yourself, turn your camera back on, and you'll have about 5 to 7 minutes to answer those questions that the governor's office sent you before today's hearing. In short, we want to hear how you ended up with your felony conviction. We want specifics, not just I was hanging out with some bad people and I got convicted of a felony. There's a little bit more to the story. We want to hear from you in your own words. Two, we want to hear about how your sentence went and what happened afterwards. And finally, why you believe you've earned the chance at a pardon. So we basically want a Reader's Digest version of your life. After you get done with that 5 to 7 minutes of an opening statement, I'll open it up to the board members who may have questions. We've all had the benefit of reading your application materials. So thank you for being so thorough and taking the time. I know it's not an easy application to get through, but it does help us do our job. And we may or may not ask you some questions. After we're done with questioning, you can jump off. You don't need to stick around. Nobody does. You can go about your day and hopefully start enjoying the weekend early. After we get through all of the folks in our afternoon session, we'll be going into closed session as a board, and that's the time when we vote on whether or not to forward your application to the governor. If you receive majority support of the board members present, which today means 3 out of 4, your application will be forwarded to Governor Evers for a final decision. If you do not receive majority support, or if Governor Evers rejects your application, after we forward it to him, you'll receive a denial letter from the board, and you'll receive that denial letter or a pardon if you're granted a pardon within about a month of today's hearing. That said, sometimes it does take a little bit longer depending on our internal processes. The final thing is I'll just do a quick round of introductions of our board members present, and then we will get right to Timothy. So in addition to myself, we have Nadia Perez-Reyes, who is a former public defender and is currently the Assistant Deputy Secretary at the Wisconsin Department of Children and Families. We have Noble Ray, who is a former chief of the Madison Police Department and now does implicit bias training for law enforcement agencies. And last and certainly not least, we have Anthony Cooper Sr., who is a vice president with the Nehemiah Center, leading up the re-entry services for folks leaving our correctional system, and also works in violence prevention here in Madison. And with that, Timothy, it looks like you are on. So if you wouldn't mind turning your camera and unmuting yourself, we will get started. So Timothy. There we go. I can hear you, Timothy. Just turn your camera on and we'll be all set.
Okay, how do I turn my camera on?
They're right next to where that mute button was. There should be a little camera icon in the lower left-hand corner of your screen, and you can just touch that and your camera should turn on.
And start the video?
Yep, I just prompted you, so hopefully that will.
Okay, hang on.
There you go.
All right.
We're all set. So Timothy, thanks for joining with us and for being the first person. So as I said at the beginning, if you could just talk about how you ended up with your burglary felony conviction back in 1990, how that occurred, what happened afterwards, and why you have earned the chance to receive a pardon. So please go ahead.
Well, my father worked part-time at a bar, across the street from where I lived with him. My dad was on vacation and left his bar keys in the house. I was 17 years old at the time. So on July 13th, me and 2 others waited for the bar to close. I took my dad's keys, and around 3 a.m. we went into the bar, took a few bottles of liquor, some case of beer, some change from cash register, and a phone. So that night we had a bunch of people over and had a party in my dad's apartment. I lived that with them. I mean, I apologize for what I did. I was young and not using my head and hanging out with the wrong people. I was sentenced to 60 days in Huber and 3 years probation. I never had any violations, was good the whole time, and paid my restitution. Since my conviction, I met a nice girl that made me change my life around. My dad also did too. I married her in 95. We had 3 daughters together, 19, 21, 23. We were married for 15 years, but together for almost 20. In 2010, unfortunately, we got divorced. Till this day, we still talk and are best friends. After my divorce, my dad wanted me to move in with him. My dad had lung cancer in 2010 and had one of his lungs removed. He was on chemotherapy, which takes a lot out of a person. So it was good that I was there to help him with things. After I got home from work, in May of 2013, things went bad for my dad. His other lung collapsed during a chemo treatment. They rushed him to the hospital. He was in the ICU for about 2 weeks when he passed away, May 15, 2013. I also lost my mother in 2020 from dementia and COPD. My parents were divorced since I was 12 years old. I also lost my only sibling, my sister, in 2021 from a brain aneurysm. So all I have left for my family is my daughters and my grandkids. When my dad was alive in April, he talked about moving up north, where I'm living now, at a place my dad bought in 2009. I told my dad I would find a job up here and would move up here with him because he didn't want to be alone. So I found a job in a fiberglass company, but unfortunately my dad passed away before I could move up here. After I got out of Huber, I found a fiberglass composites company that gave me the opportunity to work for them. I learned everything I know about the fiberglass composites and manufacturing process. I was there for 11 years. After my 3rd year, I got a job promotion to be a shop trainer for all new employees. Well, in 2002, the company went under. So I found another fiberglass company I started at and worked there till May of 2013. That's when I moved up north to the fiberglass company I'm at now. This is when my dad was going to move up here, but he passed away. And I made a career out of working at the fiberglass composites. I'm planning on retiring from the company I'm at now when I'm old enough. I've been working with fiberglass for 31 years. Why I think that he's over pardon? I think that he's over pardon. I haven't been in trouble since my verdict conviction. It's been 32 years. And I got my life all straightened out and turned my life around to better myself and show a lot of people I could change for my family. Pardon would do for me, they're giving me all my rights back, where I could vote, have my gun rights back, and have my felony lifted off of my back. I got 3 daughters that would like to start gun hunting, and it would mean so much to me if I could do that with them. I would also like to do some volunteer work with the DNR someday, if possible. And I would love to be able to go to Canada and do some hunting and fishing someday. And I love the outdoors. My dad had me hunting and fishing since I was 7 years old, which after my felony conviction ended my hunting privileges, which I love to get back and enjoy with my daughters and grandkids. And I'm very sorry for what I did in the past. I was wrong. I wasn't using my head, hanging out with the wrong people. I hope the pardon board in 20 years is going to forgive me for my past. And I thank you for giving me the opportunity for his pardon hearing.
Thanks, Timothy. Questions from the board? Noble? You're muted, Noble.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, great. Good afternoon, Timothy, and appreciate you being here. Just one kind of straightforward question. Since your conviction and to this date, Have you gone hunting at all with a firearm?
Doing bow hunting.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, I just been bow hunting, and well, now you can use crossbows. I can use a crossbow.
Okay. Other questions from the board? All right, well, thanks, Timothy, for appearing before us today and being the first person for the afternoon session. You'll hear from us in, again, about a month from today's hearing, but hope you have a good weekend.
And you too. Thank you for hearing me.
Thank you.
So how do I disconnect this now? Do I just?
You can just hang up. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep. Thank you. All right. Next, we'll be hearing from Daniel Schmidt. Daniel?
Yes.
All right. Well, welcome. You've now had the benefit of seeing how this works. So please proceed with sharing your story with us.
Perfect. Thank you. Good afternoon, board members, and I really thank you for the opportunity to speak with you as I'm requesting this pardon for the crime of forgery. I'll start off to give you a little bit of details around the crime and what took place. It was in summer or fall timeframe of 1992. I grew up in Oshkosh, Wisconsin. I come from a great family. I was a teenager that certainly knew everything and was quite rebellious, and my dad was fairly strict and had specific rules, largely around grades and things of that nature. So I spent a fair amount of time being grounded because I wasn't the best of teenagers. And when it came to the summer of 92, I decided I didn't want to do that anymore. So I took off on my own. I became a runaway. And kind of just bounced from friend to friend, and at times didn't really stay anywhere. I would just walk around and do whatever I had to do, but I was quite stubborn at the time, so I wasn't going to go home. There was a point in time over the course of that while at a friend's house, I saw some checks there, and I took some of the checks, and I knew a clerk at a local gas station, so I went there and I wrote the checks out to myself and got some cash and took that. At the time, I really didn't see a whole lot of harm in it. I was just writing out some checks. Certainly felt at the time there was far worse things I could have been doing, but didn't really give it much thought. And it wasn't too much long later, my dad got a hold of some friends of mine, and they tracked me down and shared with me that, I needed to go home, that the authorities were looking for me. So I did so. I spoke with my father. He gave me advice at the time and told me that I need to, go do the right thing, which I did. I went down to the Oshkosh Police Department and, explained what had happened and, was arrested, of course, and charged with the crime. And, I did have to spend a little bit of time in jail while I awaited sentencing for that because they did waive me into adult court. I was close to 18 years old at the time. So I spent, it was almost 3 months in the Oshkosh, the city jail there. And I was sentenced on, I believe it was March 12th, 1993 was sentencing time, and I had probation thereafter. It was quite an experience. I felt like I had learned a lot. It was certainly unfortunate and bad choices on my part, especially now looking back. During the course of my probation, things started out really well. I got a job, just started trying to figure life out a little bit as an 18-year-old. I had a girlfriend at the time who we had met, in our late teen time frame there. And I did have a slip up. I was with some friends one night, and those friends made a decision to get into a fight with an individual, and they actually took his wallet. I did not partake. The individual, the victim, actually did testify as such that I did not partake. However, I was convicted as party to the crime of the incident. Of course, my probation officer was engaged in that process. He was quite understanding, realizing that I didn't partake. However, especially looking back at it now, it's something that I should have absolutely intervened in. It wasn't the right thing. But that was the only slip up that I had from that time forward, which is largely due to my wife today, who was that same individual that we started dating March 20th of 1993. there was a couple times where she made it quite clear of the path she was headed down, and she'd love to have me there. But so I needed to make some changes, and I did that. I finished out the rest of my probation sentence with ease. Had no concerns at all, not even a speeding ticket. I've been very, very a good citizen ever since. So I completed all the requirements of that probation and have been focused on family and building a successful career ever since. Life since completing my sentence, I apologize. I made myself some notes here, so I hope it doesn't look like I'm looking too far away from the camera.
You're fine.
As I said, I've been with my wife since March 20th, 1993. We've been married for 24 of those 29 years. We've got a beautiful 20-year-old daughter. She's on the autism spectrum, so we've learned a lot. It's taught us a ton, and we continue to learn more day by day as we go through that journey with her. We spend most of our time with family up north. We have a cabin in the North Woods. We love to go on family vacations. We've made that a tradition. We do that at least a couple times a year. I've been very fortunate to build a successful career. Today, I'm an executive with a large mechanical contracting firm in Kaukauna, Wisconsin. My wife is a deputy town clerk for the town of Winneconne, where we live. We consistently do our part by volunteering for organizations such as Rebuilding Together the Fox Valley. We take our daughter and volunteer at the Oshkosh Humane Society because she loves animals so much. We volunteer for Salvation Army. I'm on the board of the Harbor House of Appleton, Wisconsin. We do our best to be generous to numerous different organizations that support the community, but especially United Way and Harbor House are probably the two that we contribute to primarily. And why I feel I should receive this pardon, I certainly own the choices I made as a teenager, and looking back at them now, I'm not proud of the choices I made. However, I do recognize that they are part of my journey and in some way contributed to who I am today. I realize this pardon will not hide the poor choices I made, but it would certainly provide validation of the positive changes I've made in my life ever since. I also have continued aspirations to grow in my career, to include pursuing opportunities to serve in local public office or the town board level. And while I always will be open about my story, I feel sharing that I have been awarded the governor's pardon will certainly have a positive impact. And lastly, I feel I've done all the right things since the times of my crime and will continue to do so. I'm a good and contributing member of society and would cherish yours and Governor Evers' recognition of that through providing me with this pardon. Any questions for me?
I'll open up to the board. Any questions from the board? You're very thorough, so thank you for your presentation, Daniel, and for all of your good work in the community. And as you've heard me say before, you'll hear from us in about a month in terms of the outcome of the process, but appreciate your time and have a good day.
Thank you. You all have a great weekend. Thank you so much.
All right. Next, we'll be hearing from Ryan Steinecke. Ryan, if you wouldn't mind unmuting yourself and turning your camera on. There we go. Yep, perfect.
All right. Hello, board. My name is Ryan Steinecke. I live in Milton, Wisconsin. When I was 17, almost 18, I was with some friends of mine, and we just, they were in a gang, and and I was trying to be tough, and I wanted to get initiated, and I fired a firearm into a house, and I was charged with first-degree reckless endangerment. Count 1, count 2 was first-degree reckless endangerment. That was when I was 17, 18. I think I just turned 18, so it was in the adult court. I was charged with, at the end of it, I was charged with party to a crime. Count 2 of the first-degree reckless endangerment was dismissed. I got 5 years probation. First year of probation was in the Rock County Jail with Huber. It also had restitution, community service, work release, drug, alcohol, and psychiatric treatment, which I completed everything. And I also completed the recap program that just started back in 1993. While I was there, I got my HSCD. And my time there was no problems while I was in Huber and doing the recap program. The only thing I did in 96 or 97, I got no WI while I was on probation. And my probation officer, the only thing that she did was she made me spend a weekend back in the Rock County Jail. And I believe that is no longer on my record. I don't know. Since my conviction, I was bartending when I was about 21. And then since then, I met my wife now that I've been married to 17 years. We have two sons. One is 19, and he's out of school. My other one's 14. He's a freshman in high school. They both play 3 sports. They take a big part of my time. Before one of them got their license, I was a taxi driver for all of them, both of them. I'm just looking at my notes. I apologize. I now work at, I've had a few jobs here and there. When the economy took a bad turn in 2008, I was working for a plumbing outfit. I'd probably still be there, but they closed the doors. Then I had a couple other jobs in between there at a cold storage facility. I worked at Wolf Sub-Zero in Madison, and now I'm working at GE Healthcare making stuff for hospitals. And when COVID hit, we made a lot of ventilators for the world. That's where I've been at. I'm almost 3 years. I love it there. I think I found my last, probably 20 years of work, and I'll be working there. As far as what I do outside, it's mainly I do a lot of boosters for baseball, football, and basketball for my 2 sons. We do a lot of, fundraising, try to, buy uniforms and all that. I live a pretty dull, boring life. It's mainly just sports and come home after work. Why I think I deserve a pardon? It's been 29 years. I owned up to this the first day I walked into the Rock County Jail. I was young. I can't just say that, but yeah, I think I knew what I was doing. I was trying to be tough, which I'm not. I was trying to be something that I'm not. Yeah, you hang around with the wrong crowds. It happens. Since, I haven't had a ticket or anything in going on 20, a long time. The embarrassment I caused my family, my family members they were kind of well known. I'm from Janesville. Making the front page of the paper for something not good. It was not something I enjoyed. And that's really all I have.
Questions from the board? Ryan, can you talk a little bit about just a little bit more context in terms of what's going in your life? Because you mentioned you were with the wrong crowd, but your aunt sent in a really nice letter, talking about your upbringing, where you are now. Can you just flesh that out a little bit about what was going on in your life, when you were in high school?
Yeah.
Or even before that?
Yeah. My parents got divorced when I was 3. My mom got remarried when I was 13. So I was moving from Janesville to Milton, Wisconsin. I wasn't a happy person about that, about moving. I didn't know anybody. It was just, I think I was rebellious about something good was happening with my mom, and my dad wasn't really around. So I think I just rebelled against everybody.
Mm-hmm.
And that's all I have.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. Nadia?
Hi, Ryan. I'm just wondering, based on your experience, this incident and with guns, like what you've talked to like your family, your friends, your community about, you know, based on your experience, and then also I think just safety, you know, when it comes to firearms.
Well, like I said, I've talked to my kids. I haven't, my oldest, I told him what I did, you know, with the gun, shooting a gun into a house. It's not, guns are not the answer. I was a hunter, but my kids are not in hunting. Like I said, as far as the community, I never really talked to community people. You know, I talked to my representative down here in Milton, and that's why, you know, he was my English teacher or history teacher, and I talked to him a little bit. I never really talked about the safety of guns. I never was taught about the safety of guns and what you should and should not do. You know, even though I did give my the badge or whatever, so you can go deer hunting. I'm sorry. That's all I have.
Any other questions? Noble?
Good afternoon, Ryan. You talk about gangs in Janesville, gangs in that area. Could you describe the gang that you were involved in, the name of it? What was going on? I'm trying to think back in Wisconsin's history related to that, and I'm trying to connect what you're saying related to gangs. Could you help me with that?
Yes, no problem. There was the Gangster Disciples out of Beloit, and there was one of my friends was supposedly, a Gangster Disciple, and I was just trying to follow in his footsteps. I think I was more of a follower back then, and he introduced me to a couple other people. They were Gangster Disciples from Beloit. And it was like an initiation, it was a scare tactic. I didn't plan on anybody getting hurt. It was like an initiation they said that I had to do, to be part of their gang.
Thank you.
All right. Well, thanks, Ryan, for appearing before us and sharing your story with us. You'll hear from us in about a month in terms of the outcome of the process, but hope you have a good day.
You too. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Next, we'll be hearing from, let me see, Stephen Heineck. Oops, there we go.
Hello.
Hello. Well, you've seen how this works. So please proceed with sharing your story with us, and then I'll open up for questions.
I am before you today seeking a pardon for the crime I committed in 1999. Before I start, I'd like to explain my voice and speed have been affected by throat cancer 11 years ago. I will do my best to speak slowly and repeat anything you need me to repeat. I had been farming with my brothers since the late 70s. I was still in high school. We were young and already financially strapped. The majority of the milk truck was assigned to creditors. The debt increased and farming was tough. We began to buy and repair, sell used farm machinery for additional money. The pressure, the stress of mounting debt led me to steal a tractor from an auction site. The theft was reported, I was arrested, and I only not hurt myself, I hurt those around me. I deeply regret what I did. I served 30 days in the Vernon County Jail, was sentenced to 4 years probation and 100 hours of community service. I paid the fines and the court costs with the help of my family. I earned an early discharge from my probation on July 22nd of 2003. I served my hours of community service by mowing grass at the Hillsborough Firemen's Memorial Park, the city of Hillsborough recreational areas, and I cleaned the dairy barns for area fairs and helped out other organizations as they needed. My family not only helped me financially, but also mentally, as they understood how difficult a situation turned to desperation. They have supported me through all this. I have continued to farm and grow the implement business. I work to serve my customers, and their support of my business shows that. I have earned their trust. I serve the community, support the local FFA, Hillsborough Schools, Hillsborough Lions Club, Lavelle Team Rodeo, Hillsborough Tractor Pull, Hillsborough Hope Cancer Organization, and Vernon County Crime Stoppers. I'm a member of the St. John's Lutheran Church in Reedsburg, support and serve there. I strongly support charity benefits in and around our communities. I know how firsthand devastating a life-threatening diagnosis or a terrible tragedy can be. I was married in 2003 and soon became a father of 3. Twin boys, Tom and Jack, who are seniors in high school, and Sam, who was a freshman. I have been honest with my boys about this situation from the time they were old enough to understand what I did and what the consequences are for an action. I've told them and continue to remind me that no situation is too big to handle when you ask for help. I would like the possibility to hold office at local level or serve on the county board. I feel that the knowledge I have and have learned with my experiences could help be an asset on a board. Since 1999, I've abstained from my family's hunting traditions. My sons have been guided by their grandpa and uncles in learning to hunt. As my boys are very close to becoming adults, I would love to have the opportunity to participate in these family traditions with them. My youngest son has 3 years of high school left. I would like to volunteer on the school's trap team if my son so chooses to participate. There's not a day in my life that I regret what I did. I'm grateful for this opportunity.
Thanks, Stephen. Questions from the board? All right, well, thanks for appearing before us, Stephen. You're very thorough in your response, and I hope everything goes well with your treatment, and hope you have a good weekend. Thank you. All right, next, we will be hearing from Hatasha Goodman, or Tasha, it looks like you go by.
Yes.
All right.
Hello, everyone.
Good afternoon, Tasha. You've seen how this works, so I'm just going to hand things right over to you.
Oh, absolutely. 2002, I take full accountability and responsibility for the things I've done. What I was doing is I was taking personal checks of accounts that were closed and depositing them in people's account so that within 24 hours when the check clear, I can get the money. That was my theft by false representation. And then I had a friend who was making counterfeit checks, and I had a friend that worked at a bank, and I cashed a counterfeit check. So I caught another case from that. So in 2003, I was convicted. I received 1 year in prison, and I received 3 years on probation. I successfully completed my probation, restitution paid in full. I also remained a law-abiding citizen. I came home, and I earned my bachelor's degree in human services. So I worked as a teacher in Milwaukee, Wisconsin for 8 years. And then I moved here to Texas, and I started working on my master's degree in professional counseling. I earned that. I went on to work during my internship. I was working with children and adolescents that was at risk. I enjoyed it because I knew I went down a negative path and I made some wrongful decisions. And I kind of want to prevent that from happening with them. So it was gratifying to, get them on a straight and narrow path and to motivate them to do better things and have better choices. I currently work as an elementary school counselor, and as of May 1st, I have my own home health agency open and up and running. My reason for asking for this pardon is because I kind of want to be granted back. Like, I want a clean slate. I want a new leaf on life. I want to just start off fresh. And I kind of want to also, I'm going to say earn, because I worked and I gave back so much, earn my rights that were taken from me when I was convicted as a felon.
Thanks, Tasha. Questions from the board? All right, well, Noble?
Good afternoon, Tasha.
Good afternoon.
From the report, you've mentioned that you have paid all your restitution.
Yeah, I paid my restitution in full. It probably was about a total of 16 people on my case. And I guess whoever was last, like being released from prison or off probation, they were left with the remaining balance. I paid so much. As long as I was on probation, I had a set amount that I paid every month to my parole officer.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions from the board? All right, well, thanks, Tasha, for appearing before us, and best of luck. You're a busy person.
Yes,
and
thank you so much.
Hope you have a good weekend.
Likewise, thank you. You guys have a great one.
All right, next we'll be hearing from Gary Wilson. Gary, let's see if you're on. All right, Gary. Oops. All right, well, we'll move ahead, and then we'll have somebody from our staff reach out to Gary. Oh, there you are, Gary. All right, if you wouldn't mind just unmuting yourself. There we go.
Okay.
Well, Mr. Wilson, you've seen how this works. So please proceed with sharing your story with us.
First of all, I'd like to thank you for having me here today to try to right the wrongs that I have done further in my lifetime. I've been working. How I got this case of burglary was I was working at a U-Haul in Milwaukee, Wisconsin on 20th and State. And on that particular day, I was off from work, and I decided I needed some extra money. So during the time I was messing around with, just during the day, being off on that day. And then I was like, I need me some money. So what I did was I went to my place of employment and entered after working hours. Even though the amount of money that I took was $100, it had nothing to do with how much money I took. It was how I went in the store after hours. That's what I was told. And that's how I got the burglary charge. But ever since that time, I was trying to stay clean because I have a background of alcohol and drug abuse. So I had been clean for a while. I was just getting, trying to get my feet under me. And so I kind of like slipped up a little bit. I mean, I was like, well, keeping it to myself and then sneaking behind people's back, and then nobody knew I was using with me. So I ended up needing some money. So I went in there and got some. I had my own key, my own alarm code. So it just so happened that next day that the person that's supposed to open the store didn't open the store. So we would always kind of like use that money that was for to run the store. We would use that like a payday loan. We'd take loans out of it and pay it back when we get paid. That's what I do. So I just went in there and took some money, and then that's the way they found out is the district manager came in and opened up the store and found some money was missing and checked the alarm codes and see who came in the store and called the police. So then I wound up losing my job behind it. And then that's when things took a turn for the worse, you know. After I was charged with a felony, you know, I was kind of finding it hard to get a job. I could see myself being stuck off in this situation that I knew deep down inside myself that I was better than that. You know, I just seen where because when I went to court, I was actually given 3 years just for that in prison. And after the judge asked me, did I have something to say for myself? I was like, well, I guess I do. So I spoke. And she said, you know what? I'm going to stay your sentence. And I was like, wow. So then that's what kind of jump-started my life.
What did you say, Mr. Wilson? Sorry to interrupt. What did you say to the judge? Do you remember?
Yeah, I remember just like it was yesterday. I said, because, you know, my mother and father, they are believers. They're Christian people. You know, my father's a preacher and my mother, you know, she never drops best sense, it's about sense sometimes, you know. And I just was there to hold myself accountable that day. I was like, well, even though I didn't feel like I deserved to go to prison for they was trying to give me 10 years. I'm like, for that, but just that, you know, but I put myself in that situation. So, but maybe it took that to get me to where I am now, you know. It's like, I like to say, like, you do a math test. You got scratch paper there on the side to help you figure out the answer. You know, all these things happened to me it was just to get me to the answer, to where my life can be turned around. And I was like, well, I guess I'll just accept the 3 years, but then she just stayed the sentence and I made the best out of that. From that day forward, I ain't been in no more trouble since then. And so then you know, after I kind of cleaned myself back up, I was like, you know what? If I could stay sober for 2 years, this was during the time of the probation. I had to do 3 years for it. I said, I'm gonna go to school. Then the 2 years rolled around. Because I would make it, at first I would make it like a year and then I would stop. A year and then I've come to find out I would get overwhelmed by fear of success. Once I overcame my fear, I said, I can do this. I deserve just as what everybody else around me I see doing, you know. And I was like, well, how do you go to school? I was embarrassed to ask somebody because then I would be talking to people, they be like, 38 years old, you too old to go to school. So then I was like, well, I'm gonna go down to MATC and I'm gonna find out how you get on my own. So I went down there and they was telling me how much it costs, and then I was seeing how much the admission test was. So I said, I ain't got no money. So then one day I used to get the paper, and one day I seen what they was giving me an admission test for free. I was like, oh, I guess I'll go down there and take it since it's free. So then I had got a little job. I was like, well, I'm gonna go take this test. So I got home, I was sitting there watching the clock. I said, you know what? I ain't been to school in 20 years. I ain't gonna take that. I ain't gonna pass the test. I'm not gonna go. So I kept waiting around. And then finally I said, I got enough time to make it down there. So I went down there, I took this test. And I was like, there's a whole bunch of people. I'm seeing people that ain't been out of school a good year talking about they can't start class until they take a math course and stuff like that. They was all failing. So then I was, out of all the people, I was the next to the last person to get through. So she was just writing. Then all of a sudden she said, can you start on this date? And I was like, I passed, you know, I was like, and I almost didn't go. And then I was like, taking all the things that I learned through all the treatments and stuff I went through and stuff, taking one day at a time. And I've seen people fail and drop out of school and stuff. And not one person was there when I made it to the end, long story short. But I said, because they said, if look around, it's going to be some people there and ain't going to be there when you get there at the end. I said to myself, I'm going to be there. So, and then come to find out, I was on the dean's list every semester. I was like, and all this time, I was just pretending to be dumb, but I've learned life is like choices. Sometimes we make bad choices, not that, and learning that what I do affect others, other than it, in my family, the community, I learned all these things through my life experiences. And I starting out and then trying to get a better job. And then they always would ask that question, do you have a felony? Then you got to go through all that. And then they say, you get turned down for a job. And so after that, I was like, well, I got to do things that would offset all this negative. I got to put some positive things on my work. And finally one day, when I decided to be as an automotive maintenance technician. And once I went to start going to school, and then finally I was given a chance and I took the advantage of it. And I've been doing it for 23 years now, ASE certified, I work at Andrew Toyota in Milwaukee. Mm-hmm. But I was just like, people that know me and stuff. I mean, I try to talk to young people and stuff and tell them about my life. Even if you get a felony, you can overcome it. Even if you get addicted to drugs, you can overcome it. But by the grace of God, there go I. Because somewhere along the line, I found God and put God in my life and thank him every day, because he could have left me in the gutter where I was. He didn't have to do it, but he did. I don't know why he did it. But God saved me, because I know a lot of people that used to hang out they either dead or in jail. That could have been me, And I just like to, people coming behind me, people that I deal with might know somebody that's been in the same situation, they give up on them. I just want to let them know they don't got to give up on them. Just show them a little love and understanding, man. That's all you need. Sometimes you just want to hear a kind word, that somebody cared. Because my self-esteem was low. I didn't have nobody to turn to but God, But I thank God that he saved me and he brought me to this moment, And like I said, they're knowing that people can't overcome life on life's terms. Just because you got dealt a bad hand don't mean you can't win.
Oh, thanks, Mr. Wilson. I'm going to open it up for questions, but thank you for sharing your story with us. Questions from the board? Well, you're very thorough and you have a very incredible story, Mr. Wilson. And you'll hear from us in about a month from today's hearing, but really appreciate your candor and hope you have a good weekend.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Take care.
Bye.
All right, next we will hear from Yasmina Carroll. Let me see if she's on. There you are.
Hello.
Hello, well, welcome. You've seen how this works, so please proceed.
I don't know why I feel so nervous, but
you're not the only one, so don't worry about it.
However, I want to thank you all first for the privilege and the honor to be able to speak in front of the hearing board today. I really can't believe it's happening. So to move right along on looking at the offense of the felony that I did end up getting because of my actions with another individual. It was actually party to a crime, forgery. On the offense date was November 18th of 2000. It was actually, I had, prior to this situation and being convicted of a felony, I also had other criminal activity, or really I want to say for one of the charges, I was just really around a particular person that didn't have my best interest at heart, and I didn't even know what they were doing inside of my home. As well as another situation that happened. I had come to this point in 2000 that where I was ready to get my life together. I wouldn't say that I was a bad person and never have been, but most definitely have made bad choices. And so I was working with the individual actually who had gotten me a job. I was living with my mother at the time, along with my then 2-year-old daughter. And along with my brother was staying there from time to time, and my stepfather. And so at that time I was looking for employment, was having an issue with finding employment due to my criminal background history. And so therefore my brother's girlfriend, the other person that's named on the case, she was able to get me a job at this company called Federated Adjustment. At Federated Adjustment, I was very excited to have the job. I couldn't even believe that I was able to get a job at that particular time, considering my background. I ended up getting hired. We started the job. I was there working in collections. I was taught how to, set goals and being able to actually get up on the board to where you're doing work the right way and you get incentives for it. So one particular day, the other person in the case, she was going on lunch break. She and I had grown a pretty good relationship. She was a very kind person. The only girlfriend that I can remember my brother having. She was a little older than he was, and she just seemed to be very kind to our family. So this particular day, she was about to go on lunch, and I asked her, I said, well, hey, where are you going? And she said, I'm going to Kmart. So I said, well, can I ride along? So I ended up getting in the car with her. We drove to Kmart on 76 and Good Hope. And we ended up going into the store. She told me to grab a cart. I grabbed the cart and we started going into the back of the store, which is electronics. Went back into the electronic department and she says, get whatever you want. And so at the time, I'm just like, oh, okay, good. She's, like I said, always kind to us. So I got a stereo, I put it inside the cart, and there was a checkout in the back of the store, and there was a young lady that was standing there. I had never seen this young lady a day in my life. And I wheeled the stereo to the register, and the other person in question on the case, she says, here, take this. It was a card that she had given to me, and there was a sticky note on the back with numbers written on the back of it. I had never seen a credit card before. I never knew. My mother didn't own one at that time. I was unfamiliar with anything like that. So I passed the credit card not credit card, but a card with the numbers on the back of it. I gave it to the cashier, and the cashier never said a word to me. And I didn't find that weird, but I didn't even know that I came to find out that they knew each other. And I didn't know that. And so I gave the young lady the card. And then so she put the numbers in or whatever. And then she produced a receipt and told me to sign it. And so at that point, I kind of stood there because I was like, well, sign it. What do I sign? So I looked to the young lady who was on the case with the party to a crime. And I said, well, what do I sign? And she said, sign anything. So that's exactly what I did. I signed anything. As a matter of fact, I can remember what I signed. I signed the name Dorothy King. And I signed it, but right at that moment, after I signed it, inside of me, I felt like it was just all bad. I'm sorry. I felt like it was a bad decision. And this is on streaming, so I'll be looking a mess. But then at that time, it was too late. And so on our way leaving out the store, and I don't think we were on our way merging out the store because we had checked out, and then we were stopped by security. And he says, turn around. And so we turned around, went into like a holding area. And I was let go, I believe at that time I was let go. But however, there was like, I don't know if it was a ticket or something that came to my address where I was living with my mother. I come to find out that there were so many things that, like stories that had been told, like we were like signing for cell phones and things of that nature, like stuff that I never, ever knew. And so again, I was at a point in my life where I was trying to get my life together, trying to find a place for me and my daughter, and trying to, get from my mother's house, and really was like, I was on what I believe was the right path for my life. And so, with that being said, I've had no contact with this particular person. I haven't seen her in God knows when. My brother was murdered about 11 years ago this year. So he doesn't, he's no longer here with us. I took this moment, and, and even to the person who's card and stuff like that, I'm sorry for that. I've been sorry for a very long time, for just making that bad choice and not really standing up for myself in that particular moment, because I really did trust the relationship and I thought that we were good. And so with that being said, my life just now, it was starting, once I was actually given sentenced to probation with a sentence withheld of 3 years. House correction, 6 months. I did half of that time in house correction, and the other half, it was like a Huber law that I did. I ended up being able to come home on a bracelet to my mother's house. It was at another house, but at my mother's house on a bracelet. I was working a job throughout the Huber law at American United. I'm so grateful for everybody who has given me an opportunity to still work under the situations with having a criminal background. But however, every job that I've tried to work, that I really wanted to work, and felt as though I had the ability to do so, that, I've been turned away from job after job. But so since then, I'm now 42 years old. I've worked a lot of different jobs. I've actually worked as a youth specialist with the company. I started an LLC, Brilliance for the Bride, where I donated wedding gowns that were gifted to me, and I gifted them back to individuals. I became married in 2008. I've now been married as of April. It'll be 14 years. With my husband, we share 2 kids, and collect all together we have 6. I've emceed church events for small businesses. I've also participated in Prom Dress giveaways under my Brilliance for the Bride business. I became a peer support specialist. I'm a diabetes educator. I have a child that has type 1 diabetes, and I decided to go and just learn how to advocate for other people as well as my daughter. So I did that. I have also stepped in and just been of great support, because a lot of times I found like that I didn't have a lot of support throughout this time, even with my bad choices, and just not really thinking things through. I went back to school to obtain my certification for cosmetology. I did an apprenticeship. I've been, again, grateful for the individual who gave me an opportunity to work as a stylist. I've done that. I've also, I've recently went back to school. I obtained my bachelor's degree in human services. And I also, with studies of addiction studies, I've helped my friend that has had issues with drugs and got them to detox. I also graduated magna cum laude with the bachelor's degree. Currently, my husband and I, along with our youngest children, we relocated to Arizona about 8 months ago this month. I started an LLC here, Solutions for Life, forwarding opportunities that reinvent entrepreneurs to help support entrepreneurs with building their businesses with the mentorship program. I also have done volunteer work here, speaking to individuals with mental health and drug addictions, empowering them and coaching them through their life's challenges. I'm also looking into right now, I spoke also to a girls group, empowering them about life. And along with Solutions for Life, I'm now looking at developing, and I've also got a business license here in the area where we stay in Glendale, Arizona, and for a startup business with care coordination and care management. And day to day, I work with individuals that are less fortunate or who are having challenges within their lives, and helping them to find solutions. As far as why I believe that I deserve a pardon, I'm one that never deserves it. I believe that I deserve just an easy way out. My life just hasn't been just set up that way. So, but outside of just the time allotted, which is going on 22 years this year, I'm working hard, and I've been very diligent in my work, and I'm very passionate about people. And I just want to be able to help people change lives, but also able to see and utilizing myself as an example that you can get over bad times. And by the grace of God, first and foremost, I even have a leadership certificate to minister. So that's number one. That's what has most definitely has held me up, to just really be able to acknowledge who I am. And although I wouldn't have liked for it to happen this way, with a criminal situation, but I most definitely was able to dive in to see who I was as a person and my abilities to be able to strive through hardships and bad decisions. And so I'm grateful for this opportunity again.
Oh, thanks, Yasmin. You're very thorough. Thank you for sharing your story with us. Questions from the board? Well, you prevented any questions, so that's the benefit of being thorough. So,
yes, sir.
Thank you for you've done a lot of impressive work giving back over the years. So thank you for doing that, and hope you have a wonderful weekend.
Thank you. And sorry, I'm full of emotions right now, but
it's absolutely no need to apologize. So have a good weekend.
You as well.
All right, next we'll be hearing from Louis Navarro. So Louis.
Oops, sorry.
Nope, that's fine. All right, there you go. Well, you've seen how this works, Louis. So yes. If you can just briefly tell us about how you ended up with your bail jumping conviction and what's happened since then. So please go ahead.
You'll have to excuse me. I'm going to read off a statement here.
Not a problem.
Okay. At the time of my offense, I had a pending charge of burglary that ultimately was reduced to misdemeanor trespassing. However, prior to a plea bargain, the condition of my bond was to have no contact with my ex-girlfriend, Tricia, who I had dated for roughly 5 years. While I waited for my offense to be resolved, I fell into a deep state of sadness because I was not able to see our firstborn. At some point, I was contacted by Tricia in hopes of working things out and seeing my son. I violated my bond without fully considering the ramifications of my conduct. Lacking effective coping mechanisms to deal with my insecurities and emotions, I verbally accosted Tricia with hurtful, crude messages, thus leading me into more trouble. But no matter how events unfolded, I had no reasonable excuse for my actions or for violating my bond, because at the end of the day, I was responsible for honoring and obeying the court's order. Having perpetrated an uncharacteristic offense and never wanting to fall outside of the social norms of the rule of law, I instinctively owned up to my lack of discernment and served my sentence to society with dignity and honor, meeting all my obligations and responsibilities given to me by the Department of Justice and my probation officer. Furthermore, as a Marine in the Marine Corps Reserves, I had a duty to learn and grow from my mistakes so that I would no longer jeopardize my service to my country or the Marine Corps. And though I was honorably discharged after 8 years of service, I was no longer able to enlist in the armed forces. As the youngest of an immigrant family and the first to serve in the armed forces and graduate from college, my plans to join the local police department and put myself through law school were replaced with pushing grocery carts to eventually find a job as a recruiter where I helped individuals find employment. Sadly, after some time, I was laid off and found it extremely difficult to find a job. And though subjective, I felt that my felony record made it that much harder. Finally, through the help of a friend, I was hired on as a temp cleaning paint vessels on third shift at Rust-Oleum, ultimately being hired on as a lab technician in the research and development department. Over a 5-year span, I was able to attain a whole new set of skills that allowed me to confidently apply and get hired on by SC Johnson as a technical specialist in research development and engineering. Going on 15 plus years at SC Johnson, I have come to acquire chemical engineering skills that have allowed me to be an aerosol expert for the company. As a leading global manufacturer of aerosols, that's a big deal. Most of my community involvement has come through my job, where I have volunteered many hours to help our surrounding community. But overall, my focus and priority since my transgressions were to make something of myself that my family could be proud of and give me the ability to provide the best environment for my second born. In addition, I wanted to make sure I had the capability to financially support my children and give them the resource to help them enjoy a normal childhood. Through hard work and dedication, I've been able to attain the American dream of owning my own home, where me and my son have lived for the past 17 years. Not to brag, but I have no credit card debt or other major debts and have a credit score of 810. I have a job where I will happily retire from. Yes, I recognize I made a terrible mistake, and I, of all people, should have known better at the time. But through therapy, I have learned and grown from it. I've made amends with Trisha and have an amicable relationship with her. Having been forgiven by Trisha and reconnecting with my son has been a gratifying chapter of my life. Now I would like nothing more than to finally bring closure to an embarrassing incident from my past and restore mine and my family's pride after being labeled a felon for life. Though I had once lost my purpose and countless opportunities in life because of my actions, I have grown into a position where I'm respected at work and continue to flourish. However, I'm finding that my growth potential is once again being limited by my conviction due to international travel restrictions that come from being a felon. Working for an international company where some of our major manufacturers are abroad, this restriction severely hampers my ability to build skill sets that lay the foundation for growth and promotability within and beyond my current employer. Having invested so much of my life into my career, I would like every opportunity to fulfill my fullest potential. In addition to furthering opportunities in my profession, I would like options available to me where someday I could invest some of my time to my community and possibly put my political science degree to good use and run for alderman. Or I would like to have the ability to volunteer in whatever state I retire in without fearing I may be rejected because of my felony. Lastly, having had 8 years of service in the Marine Corps, I would like the option to use my experience and ability to obtain further training to supplement my retirement and be a certified fireman's instructor. Thank you.
Thanks, Luis. Questions from the board? All right, well, thank you, Mr. Navarro. As you've heard me say a couple of times, you'll hear from us in about a month in terms of the outcome of the process, but I appreciate your candor and sharing your story with us and hope you have a good weekend.
All right, thank you, you too.
Thank you. All right, and our final applicant today is Catherine T. So Catherine, there you are. Well, you've seen how this works, so please proceed with sharing your story, and then I'll open up for the board if they have any questions.
Okay, well, thank you so much. I appreciate the opportunity to share with you. I appreciate the process of all of us here today being able to share and try to reclaim a piece of our life. What happened for me is I'm 58 years old now, and this incident happened in 1982. I was 19 years old. I was working with at a local mall for a shoe store, and I was really in the grips of my using. I started using just experimentally as a kid. I was 12, 13, but by 15, 16 years old, I was using daily. And by the time of this charge, 19, I was stealing from my employer to support a habit. And I was reading back to fill this application out because it's been quite some time. I know that I was charged for 40 refunds. I was creating false refunds at the store, and there was 40 of them, and the total amount was $1,049. And it was like a nightly thing over a course of time. So the first, there was a lot of things that I wasn't addressing in my own personal life. I didn't see my life as unmanageable. I can see it now. At that time, I did not. It seemed there was a bravado, a part of me that I liked having the money, not only for the drugs, but also the lifestyle. And I was working really hard to impress the wrong people. and really moving further and further from myself. But I wasn't yet at a place where I even acknowledged that that I was an addict. That was not on my radar at all. And so I was failing out of college that first semester. Well, I was at LTC, was it Lakeshore Technical Institute? It was a tech school. And really my drug use in high school, my grades were going down. I was always a good student, and that changed for me. And then not even being able to do the footwork to make applications for college was part of the problem, that, you know, my using interfered with me doing much. So this job became an avenue to have additional dollars. When the Gallenkamp shoe store internal investigation happened, I had an opportunity to be honest, and I didn't. I lied. I acted as if I knew nothing about what they were talking about. And again, as I become more aware of addiction and how that manifests, I understand lying, cheating, and stealing was part of who I was to protect what I was doing. But at the time, I just felt like I was too smart to get caught. I was, arrogant, self-centered young person. And where that took me then was to, a federal charge. And so I was convicted in sentenced in March of 1983. And, that was a rough, I shamed my grandparents. I was the oldest of 6 kids. They did not know what to do with me. We weren't talking about addiction. We weren't talking about mental health at that time. And I do remember going to my probation officer and him saying to me, like, you always show up at 8 in.the.morning, and that's unusual. And I remember behind his desk, there was the Serenity Prayer. I didn't know what that was either at the time. But it's interesting that I noticed it and I never forgot that. So I dropped out of school. This felony, I lost my job. I was obviously not hanging around people who had high goals in their lives. I mean, basically we partied and that was it. And so what happened to me then, and, in hindsight, I get that I didn't feel good about myself, and I was seeking to feel different, and drugs did that. And so did being with any male, and I got pregnant. So that was like 1983. I got this charge, probation. I followed through on that. I had 2 years probation and restitution. That was by 1985, I was done with probation and restitution. But by that time, I also then had 2 children, and I had made the decision to get in a marriage basically because I felt like this was better than nothing. And that just makes my heart sad today, that back then I felt like that felony charge, it was like the end of the world. My life was all downhill from now. And I realize that that's not true today, but it interrupted me. I continued to make me feel like low self-worth. So I'm in this marriage, I'm raising 2 kids. It's not easy. And yet I'm in the place of at that time thinking this is as good as it's going to get. And I wasn't using, which was huge. The pregnancy of my first son really kept me from picking up. And I was able to maintain that. And yet, later I learned when I watched the disease of addiction manifest in their lives that I have really never dealt with what was at the core of me picking up. And so I have a clean date of April 18th of 2003. And I chose that date because it's the day I actually started working on me. In between that time, I went back to college in 1992. I graduated with honors in 1995. By 1995, when I looked at my transcript, and I hadn't really paid much attention to that, but my final semester, my grades were always A's throughout everything except 1995, my final semester, and that my marriage was falling apart at that time, and my kids were moving into being adolescent preteens, and there was a lot of acting out behavior, and really I saw myself in my kids, my past, who I was at that age, and I was scared because I didn't want to see them do the same thing that I did. And so I didn't get to the rooms of a 12-step program because I was in the trench of the using. I got there because I could see that I was powerless over other people, places, and things, and the only person I could work on was me, and I started doing that in 2003. In the middle of that, 1995, I graduated. I got a job at a runaway and homeless youth program. I loved that job. I sent you a couple recommendation letters from different times in my life. But since 1995, I feel like I've been a very productive member of society. I've moved forward in my career. I am in and still am working in roles in the community that, I step into community work, and I love my life. I feel good about who I am. I've worked really hard. My clean date now will be coming up on soon in April on 18th, 19 years. That's amazing to me that, I'm willing to show up for people. I'm willing to help other people. But seriously, applying for this pardon, I dropped it in the mail on Christmas Eve of 2020 as a gift to myself of I have to release myself of the shame and guilt from this incident that happened when I was a kid. And I understand, I have to take personal responsibility for my choices. And I believe that, my inability to accept personal responsibilities, I'm creating my own problems. It's my favorite line in the literature I read. It holds me accountable still. So when I'm thinking about why do I deserve a pardon, or why am I asking for a pardon, seriously, the gift already happened for me in finally facing the fear of a public hearing, because back in 1983, when I learned that I could do this, I thought there is no way that I can do that and shame my family again, because in small towns, it's on the front page of the paper, it's in the radio. It was a big deal. And today it was $1,000.49, and you were addicted and you weren't willing to talk about it, and no one asked. So I feel like I have a lot of empathy. I help a lot of women in the recovery community. I'm active in my community. And other than freeing myself of the shame, there are some things I'd like to do. I would love to be able to go on a vision quest with a Native American group in Canada. And I've been following that path for several decades. And it's something that I would like to do for my spiritual practice, but I can't go to Canada, so I can't participate with the group. That's one. I've been approached by people in the community to consider being a city alder person. I've stayed away from it because I'm fearful that this felony from 1983 could become the drama of a campaign that I just don't even want, and because people are so mean and can find things from the past, and so there's fear around that. I just think that I've listened to everybody sharing. It's the biggest deal about this is already happened for me. It was dropping it in and being like, you know what? I do not have to. I talk openly. This is not something that I don't share with people in my world. I've had to disclose it every time I applied for a job, and I really haven't lost job opportunities because of this. I have been able to demonstrate healing. And I have a lot of love in my life. I have a lot of people right now from around the state, holding me in the light because they know this is happening. So the outcome right now, I would love to be able to say that the governor has pardoned me and as a forgiveness. My parents are in their 80s. It's a big deal to them. I'm this whole Zoom thing is very interesting, and it doesn't feel like a public beating. But when I wasn't a kid, I felt like it was, seriously. And so I have two amazing kids, and I'd like for them to see that no matter how old you are, you can take responsibility for yourself, turn the page, new chapter. And so that's really why I'm here, and I appreciate you listening.
No, thanks, Kath. I'm glad this isn't a public beating session, so that's not the intent at all. Any questions from the board? All right. Well, thanks for being so thorough and candid with us. Kath, and I know it's a long wait to get to today, but this is the longest wait from here on out. So the conclusion will be here fairly shortly for you in about a month. So thank you for your time and hope you have a good weekend.
Thank you. Blessings to each of you.
Thank you. Bye. All right, and with that, we are through our applicants for today's hearing. I would like to make a motion to move into closed session for the reasons listed on the open meeting notice. Anthony seconds it. Anybody opposed?